In a universe where survival is measured in ammunition counts and slip space coordinates, where humanity's greatest weapons are children turned into walking tanks, one man fell from the sky wearing a cape, and no one knew whether to shoot him or salute him. The anomaly registered on the UNSC frigate. Forward unto Dawn's sensors 3 seconds before impact, not Covenant, not a meteor. Something else entirely, tearing through slip space like a fist through wet paper, trailing energy signatures that made the ship's AI scream warnings about dimensional breaches and causality violations. Captain Miranda Keyes barely had time to order evasive maneuvers before the object, no, the person, collided with their starboard hull at velocities that should have vaporized organic tissue. Instead, he stood on the outer hull in vacuum, cape somehow billowing in non-existent wind, and looked directly at the bridge viewport with eyes that glowed red. "Ma'am," the tactical officer whispered, voice cracking, He's not wearing a suit." Miranda didn't respond. She couldn't, because behind the floating man, 3 Covenant CCS-class battle cruisers were dropping out of slip space, plasma torpedoes already charging, and Reach, humanity's fortress world, home to billions and the UNSC's most critical shipyards, was burning in the viewport behind them. The man in the cape turned, assessed the situation in a microsecond, and moved. He became a blue and red blur that crossed 10,000 kilometers in heartbeats. The lead battlecruiser's shields flared, held for exactly 2 seconds, then shattered like glass as the man punched through the hole. The explosion was visible from Reach's surface, a miniature sun blooming in low orbit as the cruiser's reactor detonated. The second battlecruiser tried to flee. It made it 300 meters before the man emerged from the wreckage of the first ship, heat vision carving through its engines like a cutting torch through aluminum foil. The third cruiser's shipmaster showed wisdom. It jumped to slip space, abandoning its fellows. The man floated back to the forward. Unto Dawn phased through the hull without triggering a single breach alarm and materialized on the bridge in a crouch that dented the deck plating. Klaxons screamed. 20 Marines materialized from bulkheads with MA-5B assault rifles trained on center mass. "Stand down," Miranda ordered, hand hovering over her sidearm. "You just saved our lives, but I need you to explain what the hell you are before my crew decides to ventilate you." The man stood slowly, hands visible, non-threatening. He was tall, taller than most Spartans without armor, with black hair, a face that belonged on recruitment posters, and a suit that looked like it was designed by someone who'd never heard of tactical camouflage. The symbol on his chest was alien, not Covenant alien, something else. "My name is Kal-El," he said, voice steady despite the 60 rifle barrels pointed at his head. "But most people call me Superman. I don't know how I got here. One moment I was stopping a satellite collision over Metropolis. The next I was falling through something. Colors that don't exist. Geometries that made my eyes bleed. And then I was here, and you were about to die." "Metropolis?" Miranda repeated, searching her memory for colony designations. "Never heard of it. Only black site? It's a city, on Earth." Every weapon in the room clicked to a higher ready state. "Earth is glassed," Miranda said softly, dangerously. "The Covenant burned it 3 months ago, 30 billion dead. So either you're a very convincing Covenant spy wearing some kind of holographic disguise, or you're something worse." Superman's eyes widened. "Earth is No. No, that's impossible. I was just there. I spoke to Lois this morning. The Justice League, the what? Has protocols for planetary defense. Watchtower would have detected any invasion fleet. Martian Manhunter alone could. Soldier, Miranda interrupted, voice like ice. I don't know what kind of psyop the prophets cooked up, but it ends now. Marines, secure the prisoner. Full restraints. If he resists, ventilate him and space the corpse. Superman looked at the rifles, at the fear and exhaustion carved into every face on the bridge, at the planet burning outside the viewport. He raised his hands higher. I'm not your enemy, he said. I don't know what happened to your Earth, but mine is still intact. Different universe, maybe. Parallel dimension. I fought alongside people who manipulate space-time. This isn't impossible. Just improbable. But those ships that just attacked you? I can help. I can save lives. You just vaporized 2 capital ships in 30 seconds, Miranda countered. That kind of power doesn't come from parallel dimensions. It comes from Forerunner artifacts or Covenant engineering, which means you're either a war crime waiting to happen, or you're the answer to a prayer I stopped saying years ago. Either way, you're coming with us. Oni will want to dissect you, debris you, or both. She gestured to her Marines. Take him to the brig. Double guard. If he sneezes wrong, dump him. Superman didn't resist as they clamped restraints around his wrists. Restraints that crumpled like tinfoil the moment he shifted his weight, but he held still anyway, letting them maintain the illusion of control. The Marines led him through corridors that smelled like recycled air, gun oil, and fear. Every crew member they passed stopped to stare. Some made religious gestures, others reached for sidearms. The brig was a reinforced compartment with walls designed to hold rampaging elites. They sealed him inside, activated mag locks, and posted 8 guards outside with orders to shoot first and requisition body bags later. Superman sat on the bench and put his head in his hands. Across the vastness of Reach's orbital space, a different ship was completing a different nightmare. The UNSC Prowler, Circumference, had just transmitted the Cole Protocol package before being destroyed by Covenant boarders, but not before deploying a single evacuation pod. Inside that pod, unconscious from decompression and flash-cloned organ failure, was Spartan 117, call sign Master Chief. The pod was recovered by a search and rescue Pelican 40 minutes later. By the time Chief regained consciousness in the Forward Unto Dawn's medical bay, Miranda Keyes was waiting with a tablet displaying security footage of Superman's orbital battle. John, she said, using his real name because this moment required humanity, not rank. We have a problem. Chief watched the footage twice. No expression, no reaction, just those cold, analytical eyes tracking every movement, every tactical decision, every moment of overwhelming force applied with surgical precision. He's not human, Chief said finally. We don't know what he is. Claims he's from another Earth, another universe. Oni wants him transferred to Castle Base for interrogation, but with the Covenant assault accelerating, we might not have time. He could be a weapon. He is a weapon. Question is whether he's ours or theirs. Chief stood, wincing as cryo-scarred muscles protested. I'll talk to him. John, if he's hostile, then I'll handle it. Miranda didn't argue. You didn't argue with Spartans about threat assessment. It was what they were built for. Chief made his way to the brig in full MJOLNIR armor, MA-5B loaded, combat knife strapped to his thigh. The guards parted without a word. Spartans didn't ask for permission. He entered the cell alone, sealed the door behind him, and stood there for a long moment, studying the man who'd killed 2 battlecruisers with his bare hands. Superman looked up, saw the green armor, the gold visor, the absolute stillness that marked a predator deciding whether to strike. He stood slowly, hands visible. "You're one of the Spartans," Superman said. "She mentioned you. Child soldiers, right? Kidnapped at 6, augmented, trained to be perfect weapons." "We volunteered," Chief said, voice flat through his helmet speakers. "Did you? Or were you too young to understand what you were volunteering for? Does it matter? We won battles, saved colonies, gave humanity a chance." "At what cost?" "At whatever cost was necessary." Superman's jaw tightened. "I've met soldiers, good people who made hard choices because someone had to. But there's a line between sacrifice and atrocity, and stealing children crosses it." "Then you don't understand this war," Chief said, taking a single step forward. "The Covenant doesn't negotiate, doesn't take prisoners. They glass planets, burn them down to bedrock, kill every man, woman, and child, then move to the next system and do it again. We've lost hundreds of colonies, billions of dead, and the only thing standing between humanity and extinction is people like me who were willing to become monsters so civilians could stay human." "You're not a monster," Superman said quietly. "You're a victim pretending to be a weapon because someone told you that's all you're allowed to be." Chief's hand moved to his rifle. Not threatening, just present. "Captain Keyes says you took out 2 CCS-class battlecruisers in under a minute," Chief said, changing the subject. "No weapons, no ship, just you." "I'm strong," Superman admitted. "Fast, durable. My cells absorb solar radiation and convert it to energy. Under a yellow sun, I'm hard to kill. And you expect me to believe you just happened to fall into our universe at the exact moment we needed someone with your capabilities? I don't expect you to believe anything. I'm still trying to process that Earth, my Earth, might not exist in this reality, that everyone I know might be dead or never existed at all." For the first time, Chief hesitated, because he understood that particular flavor of loss. Every Spartan did. They'd all lost families, identities, futures. They'd all woken up one day and realized the life they remembered was a lie. "If you're lying," Chief said slowly, "if you're some kind of Covenant bioweapon or Forerunner construct, I will kill you. It won't be easy, might not even be possible. But I will spend every breath I have left trying. And if I'm telling the truth, then we have bigger problems than trust issues." The ship's intercom crackled to life. Miranda's voice, tight with urgency. "All hands, battle stations. Covenant supercarrier just dropped out of slip space. Mac guns charging, Spartans to hangar bay. This is not a drill." Chief and Superman locked eyes through the gold visor. "Can you fight?" Chief asked. "Can you trust me?" Superman countered. "No, but I can use you." Chief opened the cell door. Outside, klaxons screamed and boots hammered on deck plating as crews scrambled to battle stations. Superman stepped out, felt the artificial gravity shift as the ship oriented toward the threat, and made a choice. "Tell me what you need," he said. Chief's answer was simple. "Don't miss." They ran together toward the hangar bay, Spartan and Superman, human weapon and alien savior, neither trusting the other but both understanding that reach was burning and trust was a luxury dead men couldn't afford. Behind them, through reinforced viewports, a Covenant supercarrier the size of a small moon eclipsed Reach's sun, its plasma batteries charging with light that promised death. The war had found a new player, and neither side was ready for what came next. The hangar bay of the Forward Unto Dawn was controlled chaos. Pilots sprinting toward longsword interceptors, deck crews loading Archer missiles with hands that shook from exhaustion and adrenaline, and Marines checking weapons they knew wouldn't penetrate Covenant shields. Chief hit the deck at full sprint, armor servos whining as MJOLNIR amplified his movements into something faster than human, and Superman kept pace effortlessly, cape rippling behind him like a war banner from a civilization that still believed in symbols. "Spartans, sound off," Chief commanded through the battle net. 6 green status lights flickered to life on his HUD. What remained of his team after the ground campaign had chewed through Noble Team and scattered the others across Reach's dying surface. They converged on the hangar like wolves answering an alpha's howl. Jorge 052 arrived first, 250 pounds of muscle and titanium, carrying a rotary cannon that should have required a vehicle mount. He saw Superman and stopped cold. "Chief, we got a Covenant spy in the hangar." "He's with us," Chief said, knowing the inadequacy of the explanation even as he spoke it. "Like hell he is," snarled Emil A239, skull carved into his visor, reflecting light like a death's head. "I watched 2 battle cruisers pop like balloons 30 minutes ago. That was either Forerunner tech or the biggest Mach gun violation of physics I've ever seen. And it came from him." Superman raised his hands, palms open. "I understand your suspicion. In your position, I'd feel the same way. But that supercarrier has enough firepower to crack this planet's crust, and I can stop it. Let me help." "By doing what?" Carter A259 demanded. Noble Team's leader and the closest thing these Spartans had to a conscience. "Flying up there and punching it? Covenant capital ships have shields that can tank Mach rounds. You think your fists are stronger than a 3,200-ton tungsten slug fired at 0.4% light speed?" "Yes," Superman said simply. "I've fought beings who could shatter planets. I've held black holes in my hands. I've flown through the cores of stars. Your technology is impressive, but it's still bound by physics. I'm not." The Spartans exchanged glances through their visors, a silent conversation in a language of tactical assessment and shared trauma. Finally, Chief spoke. "Catherine, status on the supercarrier?" Catherine B320, the team's intelligence specialist, pulled up holographic readouts. "CSO class. Flagship configuration. 30 kilometers bow to stern. Energy projectors charging. Looks like they're preparing a glassing beam to hit New Alexandria. ETA to firing solution is 4 minutes. Our Mach guns might penetrate shields if we land every shot, but we don't have 4 minutes to charge them." "Then we go loud and fast," Chief said. He turned to Superman. "You take point. Draw fire. Get their attention. We'll follow in longswords, hit them with Archer missiles while their shields reorient to track you. If you can disable their main batteries, we can board and plant a Havoc nuke in their reactor." "You want me to be bait?" Superman said. "I want you to be useful. Can you do it or not?" Superman's eyes flared red for a microsecond, heat vision testing the hangar's bulkheads, gauging structural integrity, calculating trajectories. "I can do it, but after this, we talk about your program, about what they did to you. We don't have time for therapy sessions." Emil growled. Make time, Superman said, voice hardening. Because if I survive this, I'm not letting child conscription slide just because you call it military necessity. Chief stepped between them before Emil could respond. After. If there is an after. Jorge, Catherine, prep Longsword 3. Emil, you're with me on the boarding craft. Carter, coordinate with the Grafton. We'll need covering fire when we hit their launch bays. The Spartans moved with practiced efficiency, decades of conditioning overriding doubt. Superman watched them work, the way Jorge checked his ammunition with hands that had cradled a nuclear device to save reach earlier in the campaign, the way Emil's fingers traced the kukri strapped to his chest like a prayer, the way Carter's shoulders carried the weight of every soldier he'd failed to bring home. They were killers, victims, heroes, monsters. All of it simultaneously, without contradiction, because this war had burned away the luxury of choosing just one. Miranda's voice crackled over the intercom. Supercarrier is charging main battery. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Mac batteries, prepare to fire on my mark. Superman didn't wait for permission. He crouched, felt the hangar's atmospheric shields shimmer against his skin, and launched himself into vacuum. The transition was instantaneous. Breathable air to hard vacuum, artificial gravity to the sick weightlessness of orbital space, the muffled sounds of the hangar to the absolute silence of the void. Earth's yellow sun had been his constant companion for 30 years. Feeding him strength, making him a god among mortals. This sun was different, redder, older, weaker, but still enough. Solar radiation soaked into his cells, converted to energy that defied thermodynamics, and he felt power sing through muscles that could bend steel like clay. The supercarrier dominated his vision. 30 kilometers of curved hull plating, plasma batteries studded along its flanks like cancerous growths, and at its prow, the energy projector, a weapon designed to burn continents, to turn atmospheres into superheated vapor, to erase civilizations with the casual indifference of a child burning ants with a magnifying glass. It was charging, blue-white light gathering in the projector's core, building toward critical mass. Superman crossed the distance in seconds. Covenant point defense lasers tracked him, fired, scored direct hits that should have vaporized organic matter. The beams splashed against his suit like water against stone. He ignored them, focused on the energy projector, and slammed into it with both fists leading. The impact cratered the hull. Metal screamed, atmosphere vented in explosive decompression, and somewhere deep in the ship's structure, supports fractured. The energy projector flickered, destabilized, began to overload. Superman didn't relent. He punched again, deeper this time, tearing through conduits and power couplings, feeling heat that would liquefy titanium wash over him like a warm breeze. The projector exploded. Not the whole ship, just the weapon itself. A localized detonation that carved a 50-meter crater in the supercarrier's prow and sent shockwaves rippling through its shields. Covenant fighters launched from hangar bays, Seraphs and Banshees swarming like angry hornets. Superman spun, heat vision carving through their formations, boiling pilots alive in their cockpits, sending debris spiraling into Reach's gravity well. Inside the forward. Unto dawn, Chief watched the tactical display and allowed himself the briefest moment of satisfaction. He bought us time. Jorge, Catherine, launch now. Emil, with me. The long sword screamed out of the hangar on pillars of fire. Horsey at the controls with Catherine coordinating targeting solutions. They wove through the debris field Superman had created, Archer missiles lancing toward the supercarrier's exposed hangar bays. 6 missiles, 12, 24. Most were intercepted by point defense, but 3 made it through, detonating inside the carrier's launch bays and crippling their fighter complement. Chief and Emil hit the carrier in a breach pod, a glorified coffin with maneuvering thrusters and shaped charges. It punched through the weakened hull plating, burrowed deep into the ship's infrastructure, and deposited 2 Spartans into a corridor filled with Sangheli warriors in gleaming armor. The elites saw the green MJOLNIR suits and roared battle cries in languages that predated human civilization. Energy swords ignited, casting purple light across alien faces twisted with religious fury. Chief and Emil answered with violence. MA-5B assault rifles thundered in the enclosed space, armor-piercing rounds chewing through shields and bone. An elite lunged, energy sword raised for a killing stroke. Chief sidestepped, grabbed the alien's wrist, used its own momentum to drive it face first into a bulkhead hard enough to crack its skull. Emil's kukri found another elite's throat, arterial spray painting his armor in luminescent blue blood. "Reactors 3 levels down," Chief said, reloading without looking. "We've got 8 minutes before their shields regenerate and Superman becomes target practice." They moved deeper into the ship, killing as they went. Covenant security protocols were sophisticated. Blast doors sealed, plasma turrets deployed, reinforcements converged from every deck. But Spartans were born in fire, trained in blood, and augmented to be the perfect synthesis of human ingenuity and inhuman capability. They were death in green armor, and the Covenant learned too late that trapping them in close quarters wasn't a victory. It was a massacre. Outside, Superman was learning a different lesson. Overwhelming power didn't equal tactical omniscience. He'd disabled the main weapon, scattered their fighters, but the supercarrier had secondary batteries, dozens of them, and they were all firing now. Plasma torpedoes the size of buses converged on his position, exploding in spheres of superheated gas that registered 8,000 degrees Kelvin. His suit burned away in patches. His skin blistered, healed instantly, blistered again. And then the real problem revealed itself. The carrier wasn't alone. 3 more Covenant capital ships dropped out of slip space, CCS-class battle cruisers positioning themselves in a firing solution that would bracket Superman in overlapping fields of fire while their shields recharged. He could destroy 1, maybe 2, but the 3rd would glass New Alexandria while he was occupied. He couldn't be everywhere at once. The same limitation that had haunted him on Earth, the same reason the Justice League existed. One man, no matter how powerful, couldn't save everyone. But he could try. Superman dove toward New Alexandria, saw the city below. Skyscrapers burning, evacuation transports fleeing toward orbital stations, civilians running through streets choked with rubble and bodies. A Covenant cruiser was descending, energy projector already glowing. He hit the cruiser from below, drove his fist through its shields like they were tissue paper, punched up through 50 meters of hull plating, and emerged in a reactor chamber filled with glowing plasma. Engineers scattered, screaming in their clicking, chittering language. Superman didn't understand the words, but he understood fear. It was universal. He grabbed the reactor core's containment vessel, a sphere of exotic matter held in place by magnetic fields, and crushed it. The explosion that followed would have vaporized a city block. Instead, Superman contained it, wrapped his body around the blast, let stellar-level heat wash over him as the cruiser died in a cascade of secondary detonations. When he emerged from the wreckage, falling through Reach's atmosphere in a meteor trail of burning debris, New Alexandria was still standing, damaged, burning, but standing. Chief's voice crackled over an open comm channel. Superman had enhanced hearing that could pick up radio frequencies, and he'd been listening to the Spartans' tactical chatter since the battle began. Nuke is armed, 30 seconds to detonation. All forces, clear the blast radius. Superman looked up, saw the supercarrier, saw the tiny breach pod ejecting from its hangar bay with 2 Spartan signatures aboard. Saw the countdown timer, 28 seconds. He launched himself upward, ignored the plasma fire, the laser grids. The kamikaze Banshee pilots trying to ram him. Reached the breach pod in 15 seconds, grabbed it with both hands, and flew. Pushed his speed to the limits. Mach 5, Mach 10, Mach 20. Until friction turned the pod's exterior white hot, and Chief's armor registered critical temperature warnings. 5 seconds. They cleared the blast radius with 2 seconds to spare. The havoc detonated inside the supercarrier's reactor, and 30 megatons of nuclear fury turned 30 kilometers of Covenant warship into an expanding sphere of vaporized metal and superheated plasma. The shockwave hit them even at this distance, sent them tumbling through space until Superman stabilized and began the descent toward the forward unto dawn. Inside the pod, Chief's vitals were spiking, radiation exposure, thermal shock, decompression damage. Emil was unconscious, armor breached in 3 places. Superman held them gently, like a father carrying sleeping children, and brought them home. The hangar deck erupted in cheers when he landed. Actual cheers from crew members who'd spent months watching their civilization burn and had forgotten what victory sounded like. Medical teams swarmed the breach pod, extracting Spartans and rushing them to surgery. Miranda Keyes stood at the hangar entrance, datapad in hand, watching Superman with eyes that held calculation and something dangerously close to hope. "You saved New Alexandria," she said. 50,000 civilians evacuated while you kept the Covenant occupied. The Grafton counted 16 confirmed kills. Fighters, dropships, 1 CCS-class battlecruiser. "And the supercarrier," Superman added. "That was the Spartans. You just got them out alive." "We did it together. That's how this works, isn't it? I provide the power, you provide the tactics." Miranda's expression flickered. Surprise, respect, exhaustion. Most Spartans don't do together. They do follow orders or stay out of the way. "Maybe that's the problem," Superman said quietly. "You built soldiers who don't know how to be human anymore." "We built soldiers who could save humanity. There's a difference." "Is there? Because from where I'm standing, you sacrificed children to win a war that's still killing billions. And I'm not sure which is worse, losing or winning this way." Before Miranda could respond, alarms shrieked across the ship. Catherine's voice, panicked in a way Spartans weren't supposed to sound. "Contact! Multiple Covenant signatures dropping out of slipspace. Fleet-level deployment, counting 50-plus capital ships, 300 fighters. They're committing everything to Reach." Superman looked out the hangar bay at Reach's burning horizon, at the orbital stations exploding one by one, at the UNSC fleet, 20 ships against 50, trying desperately to hold a line that had already broken. "This is the fall, isn't it?" he said. "The moment you lose." "This is Tuesday," Miranda corrected. "We've been losing since the war started. We just haven't died yet." Chief emerged from medical, armor patched, moving like every step cost him. He walked up to Superman, removed his helmet for the first time, and revealed a face that was 35 years old but had eyes ancient with violence. "The Pillar of Autumn is evacuating non-essential personnel," Chief said. "Captain Keyes is taking her on a random slip space jump. Cole Protocol demands we don't lead the Covenant to Earth. We're going with him. You have a choice. Stay here and die with Reach, or come with us and help humanity survive one more day." Superman looked at this soldier who'd been stolen at age 6, augmented until his bones were unbreakable and his reaction time inhuman, trained to kill before he could read, and saw something he recognized. Someone who'd never been given the choice to be anything but a weapon. "I'll come," Superman said. "But when we're somewhere safe, we're having that conversation. About the children, about what you've become." "If we survive," Chief said, replacing his helmet. "Big if." The Pillar of Autumn jumped to slip space 6 hours later, Reach dying behind them in slow-motion apocalypse. And in that jump, as space folded and reality bent around them, Superman felt the pull again, the dimensional wrongness that had brought him here. This universe was trying to reject him, and he was holding on through sheer will. Cortana's voice whispered through the ship's PA system. "Slipspace coordinates locked. Destination unknown. ETA to normal space. 16 hours. Chief stood beside Superman in the observation deck, watching stars compress into lines of light. "You asked what we've become," Chief said quietly. "We've become necessary. That's all that matters in war." "No," Superman said. "It's what they told you. But necessity isn't the same as right. And one day when this war ends, you'll have to live with what you did to survive it." "If it ends," Chief corrected. "It will," Superman promised. "And I'll make sure you're still human enough to see it." Neither of them knew they were jumping toward a ring world, toward a weapon, toward the flood. But they'd learn soon enough. The Pillar of Autumn emerged from slipspace hemorrhaging atmosphere and trailing debris like a dying comet. Covenant forces had pursued them through the jump, 3 cruisers appearing seconds after the Autumn translated back to normal space. Plasma torpedoes already streaking toward the frigate's weakened shields. Captain Jacob Keyes barked orders from the bridge, his voice steady despite the hull breaches reporting on every deck, despite the fact that half his crew was already dead and the other half was running on stimulants and spite. Superman felt the impact before the alarm sounded, his enhanced senses detecting the vibration of metal tearing, the screaming rush of escaping air, the wet crack of human bodies pulverized by explosive decompression. He was moving before Chief could stop him, tearing through bulkheads to reach the breach on Deck 7, using his own body to seal the gap while damage control teams welded emergency plating. 3 Marines watched him hold back vacuum with his bare hands, watched ice crystals form on his suit as heat leached into space, and one of them made a religious gesture that predated the UNSC by 2,000 years. "Cortana," Keyes commanded, fingers dancing across holographic displays. "Get us planetside. Crash landing protocols. Scatter the crew. If the Covenant wants the Autumn, they can dig her out of a crater." The ship's AI, a woman's voice wrapped in code and combat subroutines, responded immediately. "Calculating trajectory. Warning: gravitational anomalies detected on the surface. Structure is artificial. Repeat, we're looking at a construct, not a planet. Chief reached the bridge in time to see it on the main display. A ring. Impossibly vast, spinning in space like a god's wedding band, its inner surface covered in oceans and continents and clouds. Daylight on one curve, night on another, terminator lines marking the boundaries between. And hanging above it, 3 Covenant cruisers and what looked like a dozen UNSC escape pods already falling toward the surface. Forerunner, Cortana breathed, data streams flickering across Chief's HUD. Has to be. This is exactly the kind of megastructure they built before they disappeared. Chief, this could be a weapon, or a map, or a grave, Chief finished. How many weapons do the Forerunners have floating around that we don't know about? Superman arrived on the bridge, suit torn and frosted, just as the autumn began its terminal descent. The ship shuddered, atmosphere screaming across her hull, and Keyes turned to face the impossible man who'd saved his crew 3 times in the last 8 hours. "Can you fly?" Keyes asked. "Yes." "Then get off my ship before she becomes a tomb. Find survivors. Coordinates will be uploaded to..." He paused, realizing Superman didn't have a heads-up display. "You have enhanced hearing, right? Listen for UNSC distress beacons. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short, SOS in Morse. Bring my people home." Superman nodded, started toward the hangar, then stopped. "Captain, thank you for trusting me." "I don't trust you," Keyes said bluntly, "but I trust what you've done. There's a difference. Now get moving before I change my mind and requisition you for spare parts." The autumn hit the ring's atmosphere at 17,000 kilometers per hour. Structural integrity failing, crew modules breaking away like seeds from a dying flower. Superman launched from the disintegrating hangar bay and watched the ship he'd briefly called home spiral toward a mountain range that looked carved rather than geological. The cruiser hit hard, an explosion visible from orbit, a mushroom cloud rising kilometers high, wreckage scattered across 10 square kilometers, and in the silence that followed, as dust settled and fires burned, Superman floated above an alien world that felt wrong in ways he couldn't articulate. The sky was too close. The horizon curved upward instead of down. Gravity pulled at an angle that made his inner ear scream contradictions. This wasn't a planet. It was a shell, a facade, a lie told in stone and water. Chief's voice crackled over an open channel. Superman had learned to tune into UNSC frequencies during the descent. "All Autumn survivors, this is Master Chief Petty Officer 117. Rally at Nav Point Alpha. Covenant ground forces inbound. Arm yourselves and prepare for contact." Superman followed the signal to a canyon where 30 Marines had formed a defensive perimeter around an unconscious Captain Keyes. Medical supplies scattered, ammunition counted, weapons cleaned with the mechanical precision of people who knew this was probably their last stand. Chief stood at the perimeter's edge, assault rifle in hand, watching the tree line for movement. "How bad?" Superman asked, landing beside him. "Covenant dropships inbound. 2 minutes, maybe 50 troops. Elites, grunts, jackals. We've got 30 Marines half wounded, low on ammo, standard odds." "Meaning?" "Meaning we're probably going to die, but we'll make it expensive." Superman's jaw tightened. On Earth, he'd faced world-ending threats alone and won. Here, 30 trained soldiers were preparing for death because 50 enemies was considered overwhelming force. The scale was wrong. The stakes were wrong. everything was wrong. "Let me handle this," Superman said. "Negative. You draw fire. We can't support you. Covenant battle doctrine adapts fast. If they see you as the primary threat, they'll orbital strike this position and laugh while we burn." "Then what do you need from me?" Chief considered, tactician's mind running probability trees. "Recon. Fly high. Mark enemy positions. Cortana can use that data to coordinate our defense. And if we're overrun..." He paused, something almost human flickering behind the gold visor. "Get Captain Keyes out. He's too valuable to lose." Superman started to argue, then saw the way the Marines watched Chief. Not with fear, with trust. This man had kept them alive through scenarios that should have killed them 10 times over. He was their North Star, their lucky charm, their walking proof that humanity could punch above its weight. Who was Superman to override that? He took to the air as the first Covenant dropships appeared. Bulbous purple craft that looked more like beetles than ships, disgorging elites in ornate armor, and grunts that squealed in their methane rebreathers. Superman marked their positions, counted 47 hostiles, identified 3 Ultra-class elites who were clearly commanding the formation. Cortana's voice in Chief's helmet, "Got it. Marking priority targets. Chief, if we take out the Ultras, their command structure collapses. Grunts will root. Can't reach them without going through 50 Covenant," Chief said, already moving toward the canyon's edge. "We'll have to make them come to us." But Superman was already diving, not toward the main force. Toward a cluster of grunts positioning plasma cannons on a ridge, artillery that would turn the canyon into a kill zone. He landed among them like a meteor, grabbed 2 by their harnesses, and hurled them off the cliff. The survivors opened fire at point-blank range, plasma washing over him in waves that would have liquefied armor. He walked through it, destroyed their cannons with heat vision, and returned to the sky before the elites could respond. Below, Chief swore under his breath. He just gave away his position. Every Covenant on this ring is going to converge on those coordinates. But Superman's action had a secondary effect. The elites split their forces. Half pursued the flying target, half continued toward the canyon. And in that moment of indecision, the UNSC struck. Chief's 3-round bursts dropped grunts with surgical precision. Marine snipers, 2 women named Mackenzie and Rodriguez, who'd been killing Covenant since before Superman was born on Krypton, scored headshots on jackals at 600 meters. The canyon became a kill box, and the Covenant advance stalled. Superman led the pursuing elites away from the main force, pulling them deeper into the ring's superstructure, through forests that felt too organized, past rivers that flowed at perfect right angles, toward a structure in the distance that pulsed with faint blue light. The elites pursued with religious fury, energy swords ignited, roaring prayers to gods Superman didn't recognize. He turned in midair and met their charge. 3 elites, each weighing 300 pounds, each augmented by personal shields and genetic superiority complexes. They hit him simultaneously and learned what every Kryptonian opponent eventually learned. Overwhelming him required overwhelming force. Superman caught the first elite's sword arm, broke the wrist, drove his fist through the alien's shields and sternum in one motion. The second elite's energy sword carved across his shoulder. His first real injury since arriving in this universe. A burn that actually hurt, and he responded by grabbing the elite's skull and introducing it to a tree trunk at terminal velocity. The third elite was smarter, retreated, called for reinforcements. Superman let him go, watched the elite flee back toward the canyon where Chief's defensive line was holding but ammunition was running low. Watched more Covenant dropships descending from orbit, hundreds of them, an invasion force that dwarfed the Marines' capacity to resist. This was the pattern, he realized. Not a battle, not even a war, just slow extinction. The UNSC winning skirmishes but losing the conflict, humanity bleeding out one colony at a time, and no amount of Spartan brilliance could change the fundamental math. The Covenant had more ships, more soldiers, more resources. Unless the rules changed. Superman flew toward the pulsing structure, curiosity overriding caution. Up close, it was clearly artificial. Metal and energy and something else. Something that felt alive in ways that made his skin crawl. A door irised open as he approached, recognizing him as... what? Biological? Technological? Forerunner? Inside, the air tasted electric. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing star charts and tactical data and something that looked like a weapon schematic. And in the center of the chamber, floating in a containment field, was a small glowing sphere that emanated wrongness. Not evil, just utterly alien, utterly inhuman. "Reclaimer," a voice said, synthesized and ancient. "You are not the expected template. Genetic markers are anomalous, non-human, non-forerunner, yet you access this facility. Curious." A light appeared. Literally, a floating point of illumination that resolved into a holographic figure. Small, childlike proportions. One glowing eye. It looked at Superman with the weight of 100,000 years. "I am 343 Guilty Spark," the construct said. "Monitor of Installation 04, and you, Reclaimer, have arrived at a most fortuitous time. The flood containment protocols are failing. Activation of the Halo array may be necessary." "Halo?" Superman repeated. "What is that?" "A weapon," Guilty Spark said cheerfully, as if discussing garden tools. "Designed to eliminate all sentient life within a radius of 25,000 light-years. Quite efficient. The Forerunners built 7 such installations to combat the flood, though only 6 remained functional after Installation 07's incident." Superman's blood went cold. "You're saying this ring kills everything?" "Oh, not everything. Just sentient organisms, microbes, plants, non-sapient fauna, all perfectly safe. But humans, Covenant, any species capable of thought, eliminated instantaneously. The neural pathways simply cease functioning. Quite humane, really. No pain, no suffering, just cessation. That's genocide. That is survival," Guilty Spark corrected. "The flood cannot be negotiated with, cannot be cured, can only be starved. Halo eliminates their food supply. Sentient, biomass, and thus renders them inert. A necessary evil, as your species might say." Superman stepped back, mind racing. This ring was a weapon, a doomsday device, and the Covenant was landing forces all over it, apparently seeking what they called the Great Journey, religious terminology that Cortana had flagged as concerning during the autumn's final hours. If they activated this weapon thinking it was divine ascension, they'd kill themselves, humanity, and every thinking being in the galaxy. "Where's the activation mechanism?" Superman demanded. "The control room, of course, at the core spire, accessible via subterranean transit system, but activation requires a Reclaimer's biosignature, and you are irregular. I will need to run diagnostic tests before..." Superman grabbed the monitor with both hands, felt electricity arc across his palms, and stared into that single glowing eye with an intensity that had made Darkseid hesitate. Listen carefully. Nobody activates this weapon. Nobody. I don't care what the Forerunners intended. This ends now. Impossible, Guilty Spark said, voice flickering with confusion. The flood must be contained. It is my function, my purpose. To deny activation is to doom the galaxy. Then we find another way. We always find another way. He released the monitor and flew back toward the canyon where gunfire had reached a crescendo. The Marines were surrounded now, Covenant forces closing from 3 sides, elite zealots in golden armor leading the charge. Chief stood at the center of the formation, emptied his rifle into an advancing elite, grabbed the alien's own plasma rifle, and continued firing without missing a beat. Superman hit the Covenant line from behind at Mach 3. The sonic boom alone knocked grunts off their feet. He carved through their formation with heat vision, grabbed an elite by the leg, and used it as a club to beat 3 others unconscious, and planted himself between the Marines and annihilation with arms crossed and eyes glowing red. New plan, he announced to Chief over the open channel. This ring is a weapon, galaxy-killing weapon. The Covenant thinks it's a holy site. If they activate it, everyone dies. Chief processed this in silence, then, Cortana, confirm. Analyzing monitor's data transmission, the AI said. Oh, hell, he's right. This is a halo array. Forerunner superweapon, designed to kill the flood by eliminating their food source. Effective radius covers the entire galaxy. If the Covenant activates it, then humanity goes extinct along with them, Chief finished. New objective, secure the control room, prevent activation. All other concerns are secondary. Even survival, a Marine asked, voice cracking. Especially survival, Chief said, because if that ring fires, there's nothing left to survive for. Superman looked at these 30 humans, wounded, exhausted, outgunned, facing enemies who outnumbered them 10-1. And he saw what they were planning. Fighting retreat toward the Autumn's crash site, hoping to salvage weapons and supplies, knowing most of them would die buying time for the rest. On Earth, Superman had fought armies. Here, armies fought like individual soldiers. The scale was nauseating. I'll handle the Covenant, Superman said. You get to the control room. Negative, Chief countered. We don't split the team. Your standard tactics assume normal threats. I'm not normal, and those soldiers need you more than they need me. Chief hesitated. Something like respect flickering in his tactical assessment. You die out there. It's on you. I've heard that before, Superman said, thinking of Doomsday, of Darkseid, of every apocalypse he'd faced alone because no one else could survive the impact. Usually right before I don't die. He launched into the Covenant formation before Chief could argue further. Became a whirlwind of heat vision and supersonic strikes, drawing fire, pulling enemies away from the Marines. Elite zealots recognized him as the primary threat and committed everything to his elimination. Energy swords, plasma grenades, fuel rod cannons. They hit him with enough ordnance to level a city block, and he weathered it, absorbed it, turned their own fury against them. But as the battle raged, as Superman fought to protect soldiers who'd been sacrificing children to survive, a thought crystallized. This universe didn't need another weapon. It needed hope. And hope started with refusing to accept that genocide was ever necessary. even if the entire galaxy disagreed, even if survival itself demanded it. The flood containment facility announced itself with silence. Not the comfortable silence of empty spaces, but the predatory silence of things that had learned to wait. Chief led the strike team, Superman, Cortana, and 6 Marines who'd survived the canyon engagement through corridors that felt organic despite being metal, past blast doors sealed with Forerunner security protocols that Cortana bypassed while muttering about architecture that predated human civilization by 100,000 years. The air tasted sterile, recycled through systems that had maintained perfect stasis for longer than recorded history. Reading atmospheric disturbances ahead, Cortana warned through Chief's helmet speakers. Temperature fluctuations, chemical traces suggesting rapid organic decay. Chief, I'm recommending we turn back. Negative, Chief said, advancing with MA-5B at ready position. The Covenant is moving toward this facility in force. If there's something here they want, we need to know what it is. Superman floated beside them, cape dragging through dust that hadn't been disturbed in millennia. His X-ray vision showed strange shapes behind the walls, organic masses, pulsing with something that might have been respiration, networked in patterns that looked almost neurological. There's something alive in here. Multiple somethings. They're waiting. Waiting for what? A Marine asked. Jenkins, barely 20, holding his rifle like a talisman against darkness. For someone to open the door, Superman said quietly. They found Captain Keyes in a chamber that stank of copper and meat. He was hunched over a holographic display, fingers moving across Forerunner glyphs with confused determination, and when he turned toward them, his eyes were wrong. Pupils blown wide, expression slack, movements jerky like a puppet learning its strings. Captain, Chief approached cautiously. Sir, are you injured? Keyes opened his mouth. What emerged wasn't words. It was screaming, raw, animal terror wrapped in a human voice, and then his body convulsed, chest splitting open like rotten fruit, and something erupted from inside him. Tentacles, whipping tendrils covered in barbs. An infection form, Cortana's database labeled it. A parasite the size of a basketball that used neural invasion to hijack host organisms and convert biomass into combat forms. The thing that had been Keyes lurched forward. Chief put 3 rounds through its center mass. The bullets did nothing. The infection had restructured Keyes' biology into something that didn't need conventional organs, didn't bleed red, didn't die when shot in locations that should have been fatal. Superman moved on instinct, grabbed the creature, intended to restrain it without killing what remained of Keyes. The tentacles wrapped around his arms, barbs finding purchase in Kryptonian skin, and he felt something probe his biology. Felt microscopic organisms attempting neural invasion, trying to infiltrate his nervous system, and his immune system responded with violence that would have incinerated human parasites. The flood spores burned inside him. His cells converted solar energy to heat, cooking the infection before it could establish neural pathways. And the thing that had been Keyes recoiled with a sound like breaking glass. It tried to infect you, Cortana breathed, and failed. Your biology is too alien. The flood can't process you. What the hell is the flood? Superman demanded, dropping the twitching corpse. Chief answered by pointing at the walls, at shapes that were resolving from shadows, dozens of them, hundreds, moving with coordinated purpose that spoke to hive intelligence. They had been human once. UNSC Marines based on the shredded uniforms and dog tags embedded in corrupted flesh. Now they were something else. Walking corpses with arms fused into blade clubs, torsos split open to reveal gnashing mouths, nervous systems hijacked and rewired for a single purpose: spread the infection. Combat forms, Chief said, voice flat with the tone of someone naming a nightmare. Flood reanimates host bodies, uses their knowledge, their skills. Those Marines you're looking at, they know UNSC tactics. They'll flank, they'll use cover, they'll coordinate. The first wave hit like a tsunami of rotting meat and screaming. Jenkins fired until his rifle clicked empty, then switched to his sidearm, then to a combat knife, stabbing at combat forms that grabbed him with hands that had belonged to his friends. Superman tore through the horde with heat vision and raw strength, incinerating combat forms by the dozen, but for every one destroyed, 3 more surged from the depths of the facility. A tentacle wrapped around his leg. He burned it away. Another latched onto his shoulder. He crushed it. They kept coming, overwhelming through sheer numbers, and for the first time since arriving in this universe, Superman felt something he'd almost forgotten: fear. Not for himself. For what this infection represented. These weren't enemies. They were victims. Every combat form had been someone: a Marine with a family, a soldier with dreams, a human who died screaming as their nervous system was hijacked and their body turned into a weapon against their own species. Superman had fought Doomsday, Darkseid, beings that chose evil. The Flood didn't choose, it consumed. It was hunger made manifest, biology reduced to pure predation, and he couldn't save them. Chief's voice cut through the chaos. Grenades! Seal the corridor! Marines lobbed fragmentation grenades at a structural support. The ceiling collapsed, crushing a dozen combat forms and buying them seconds. They ran deeper into the facility, where the air grew thick with spores and the walls pulsed with organic growths that looked like tumors. Analysis, Chief demanded as they barricaded themselves in a side chamber. Cortana's avatar flickered on his HUD, processing data faster than human thought. The Flood is a parasite. Infects sentient beings through direct contact or airborne spore exposure. Hijacks neural pathways, repurposes biomass, creates 3 primary forms. Infection forms for initial contact, combat forms for physical confrontation, and carrier forms that explode to spread infection. Chief, this isn't just a weapon, it's an extinction event. The Forerunners built the Halo Array specifically to stop it. By killing everything, Superman said, realization dawning cold and terrible. That's what Guilty Spark meant. The rings don't target the Flood, they target its food supply, every thinking being in the galaxy. Correct, Cortana confirmed. Halo's pulse destroys nervous systems of sufficient complexity. No hosts, no Flood. It's genocide as disease control. Jenkins was shaking, weapon clutched in hands that barely functioned. We can't fight this. We don't have enough ammunition. We don't have enough anything. We have him, Chief said, nodding towards Superman. The Flood can't infect him. That makes him the most valuable asset on this ring. I'm not an asset, Superman said quietly. I'm a person, and those things out there, they were people too. Were, Chief emphasized, past tense. The moment the Flood infects you, everything you are dies. Memories, personality, choice. It's all gone. What's left is a weapon the Flood uses to kill more people so it can make more weapons. There's no cure, No redemption, just containment or elimination. Superman looked at the barricaded door, where combat forms were pounding with fists that shattered bone with each impact, but kept swinging anyway. He remembered Key's face in that final moment, the terror in his eyes, the desperate awareness that he was losing himself. Superman had saved billions, had faced cosmic threats, had died and returned. But he'd never faced an enemy that turned salvation into damnation. "There has to be another way," he said. "There isn't," Chief said, and the certainty in his voice was worse than anger. It was experience. "I've fought the Covenant for 27 years. Watched them glass 50 colonies, seen things that would break civilian minds. But the Flood is worse. The Covenant wants to kill us. The Flood wants to make us kill each other." A Marine named Vicente spoke up, voice cracking. "My sister was stationed on Harvest when it was glassed. I watched the orbital bombardment from a transport, saw the atmosphere burn. The Covenant killed her, but at least she died human. This is worse than death." Superman's fists clenched. On Earth, he'd faced moral complexity, Lex Luthor's utilitarian arguments, Amanda Waller's hard pragmatism. But always there had been a third option, a way to save everyone. That was what heroes did. They found solutions everyone else missed. But what if this universe simply didn't have third options? The barricade shattered. Combat forms poured through, and the Marines opened fire with everything they had left. Chief moved like liquid violence, each shot a kill, each movement economy personified. Superman became a barrier of invulnerable flesh, letting the combat forms batter themselves against him, while the Marines retreated toward an emergency exit Cortana had located. "Go!" Superman shouted. "I'll hold them." "Negative," Chief said. "We don't leave people behind." "I can survive this. You can't. Go." For a heartbeat, Chief hesitated. Then he made the calculation every Spartan learned: acceptable losses. He grabbed Jenkins and Vicente by their harnesses, physically dragged them toward the exit, and looked back once at Superman standing alone against a tide of corrupted flesh. "Don't die," Chief said. "That's an order." Superman almost smiled. Not big on following orders. The chamber sealed. Superman was alone with the Flood. They came from every angle: walls, ceiling, floor, ventilation shafts, hundreds of combat forms, each one a person who died screaming. Superman fought with restraint at first, trying to incapacitate without killing, but the Flood didn't stop. Didn't feel pain, didn't fear. Arms ripped off, regenerated as tentacles. Heads crushed were replaced by sensory organs grown from spine. The infection adapted faster than he could neutralize it. And then he heard the voice. Not words, not exactly. More like thoughts pressed directly into his consciousness, bypassing language to inject meaning straight into his brain. It came from everywhere and nowhere, a billion whispers speaking in unison. "We are the Flood. We are survival. We are unity." Superman froze. The combat forms stopped advancing, holding position like soldiers awaiting orders. "You resist. Why? You see our beauty, our perfection, all life joined, no death, no separation, only us, forever." "You're parasites," Superman said. "You destroy what you touch." "We preserve. These forms you see? Without us, they would be dust, forgotten. We give them immortality, purpose. Join us. Your strength added to our strength. Your power used to bring peace to the galaxy. Peace through forced assimilation. That's not peace. That's extinction of identity. What is identity but illusion? You are atoms, We are atoms. All boundaries are artificial. We remove boundaries. We make all one. Superman thought of Earth, of Lois asking him once what he'd do if he could end all conflict by making everyone think the same thoughts. He'd answered immediately, nothing, because diversity of thought was what made humanity worth saving. The arguments, the conflicts, the endless, messy process of people with different perspectives finding common ground. The Flood wanted to erase that, replace it with perfect unity purchased through obliteration of self. No, Superman said. The Flood surged, not attacking, surrounding, encasing him in a sphere of biomass that pulsed and writhed, and through the physical contact he felt the intelligence behind the infection. Vast, ancient, patient. It had consumed galaxies before. Watched civilizations rise and fall like seasons. Waited in containment for 100,000 years, knowing eventually someone would open the door. It showed him memories that weren't his. Forerunner worlds burning, populations converted en masse, the desperate creation of the Halo Array as a weapon of last resort. The moment the Forerunners chose extinction over infection, the silence that followed, stretching across millennia. They were cowards, the Flood whispered. Chose death over transcendence. You are stronger. You could lead us. Be our avatar. Use our collective strength to rebuild this galaxy. No more war, no more death. Only us. Superman's heat vision burned through the biomass, creating space to breathe, to think. You want me to help you conquer the galaxy. Conquer implies opposition. We offer unity, voluntary assimilation. Those who resist will be converted. But with you as our face, our voice, most would join willingly. You could save trillions from the pain of forced conversion. By making them slaves. By making them part of something greater than themselves. Superman exploded outward with every ounce of strength, scattering combat forms like shrapnel, burning infection forms to ash with heat vision that painted the chamber white. He grabbed a structural support and tore it free, bringing down a section of ceiling that crushed a dozen combat forms beneath tons of metal. I've heard this speech before, he said, voice carrying over the sounds of destruction. Darkseid offered me the same deal. Rule beside him. Use my power to enforce his order. Bring peace through domination. I said no then. I'm saying no now. Darkseid sought control. We seek unity. The difference is nothing, Superman interrupted. You both wanted to erase free will. You both think you know better than the people you'd enslave. You're both wrong. The Flood changed tactics. Combat forms withdrew, and from the depths of the facility something else emerged. Larger, more complex. A carrier form, bloated with infection forms, pustules covering its surface, intelligence gleaming in eyes that had belonged to an elite warrior before the conversion. It spoke in the elite's voice, but the words were Flood. You cannot fight us all. We are infinite. We are inevitable. You will tire. You will fall. And when you do, we will study your corpse and learn how to infect whatever dimension spawned you. Superman flew directly at it, grabbed the carrier form before it could rupture, and rocketed toward the ceiling. Punched through 7 levels of Forerunner architecture, breached the facility's roof, and emerged into Halo's artificial sky. The carrier form detonated in his hands, spraying infection forms in every direction. He incinerated them with heat vision before they could reach the ground. Below, the facility was silent again, sealed, contained. But Superman knew it was temporary. The Flood was patient. It would wait for another opening, another opportunity. He found Chief's team 2 kilometers away, fortifying a UNSC supply cache that had survived the autumn's crash. They'd lost Jenkins, converted during the retreat, executed by his own squad mates before he could fully transform. Vicente was catatonic, staring at nothing, rifle clutched to her chest. The other Marines looked like they'd aged decades in hours. Chief removed his helmet when Superman landed, and his expression was grim. "You survived." "Barely," Superman admitted. "Chief, that thing in there, the flood, it's not just a parasite. It's intelligent. It tried to recruit me." "Recruit you?" "Offered partnership. Promised I could help it peacefully assimilate the galaxy. Said I'd be doing people a favor by making conversion voluntary." Chief's jaw tightened. "And you said?" "I told it the same thing I tell every would-be conqueror. No." "Good." Chief replaced his helmet, hiding whatever emotions might have shown. "Because the alternative is us fighting you, and I don't like our odds." Cortana's voice interrupted. "Chief, I've been analyzing the flood's behavior patterns. The intelligence Superman encountered, that's a grave mind. Flood collective consciousness. It forms when infection reaches critical mass. If there's one on this ring, it means the containment breach is worse than we thought." "How much worse?" "Galaxy-ending worse. A grave mind can coordinate flood forces across entire star systems. It's strategic, patient, and it just tried to convert a being with Superman's power level. That's not random. It's targeted recruitment." Superman looked at the horizon where Covenant dropships were visible in the distance, still searching for what they believed was divine technology. "They don't know what they're walking into." "No," Chief agreed. "And if we're smart, we'll let them find out the hard way. Every Covenant soldier the flood converts is one less shooting at us." "That's monstrous," Superman said. "That's survival," Chief corrected. "The Covenant has spent 30 years trying to exterminate us. If the flood wants to thin their ranks, I'm not going to stop it." Superman wanted to argue, wanted to say there had to be a better way, but looking at these Marines, kids really, barely adults, forced to execute their own friends to prevent infection, he understood what this universe had done to them. It had burned away the luxury of mercy, left only the calculus of acceptable losses. And the worst part, they weren't wrong, not strategically, just morally. And morality was a luxury people purchased with survival. "We need to stop the Covenant from activating Halo," Superman said, changing the subject. "And we need to contain the flood before it spreads off this ring." "Agreed," Chief said. "But we're 20 soldiers with small arms against an entire Covenant fleet and a parasite that turns our dead into reinforcements. We need force multiplication." "I'm your force multiplication," Superman said. "You're one man. Powerful, but still one. We need allies. Intel. Time." Cortana's avatar flickered. "I might have a solution. I've been monitoring Covenant communication channels. There's dissent in their ranks. Some elites are questioning the Prophet's interpretation of Forerunner relics. If we could establish contact, the elites have been glassing our colonies for 3 decades, Chief said flatly. "Forgive me if I don't trust them." "Not trust," Cortana clarified. "Use. The enemy of my enemy is a temporary ally, and right now, the flood is everyone's enemy." Superman thought of Thel Vadami, the disgraced elite commander they'd briefly fought alongside during the Reach evacuation. An enemy who'd chosen truth over blind faith when confronted with the prophet's lies. If more elites could be turned. It's worth trying, Superman said. But first, we need to understand what we're fighting. That Gravemind knows things, ancient things. If we're going to stop the flood and prevent Halo's activation, we need information it has. Chief stared at him. You want to go back into the containment facility? I want to talk to it, without the combat forms, just the intelligence. That's suicide. For you, maybe. For me. Superman smiled grimly. I've survived worse conversations. The Gravemind's lair existed in a space that violated geometry. Chief had deployed remote sensors into the lower levels of the containment facility, and the readings Cortana produced made her voice tight with algorithmic distress. Chief, the structure down there isn't following Euclidean physics. Rooms connect to themselves. Corridors loop through dimensions that shouldn't exist. The Forerunners built this as a prison, and the flood has been renovating. Superman descended alone. Chief had wanted to accompany him. Spartans didn't abandon teammates, even temporary ones, but Superman had been firm. If this goes wrong, if the Gravemind finds a way to compromise me, you need to be topside ready to orbital strike this entire facility. Don't hesitate. Don't negotiate. Just fire. Now floating through corridors that smelled like a charnel house, crossed with a laboratory, Superman questioned the wisdom of volunteering for solo reconnaissance into an alien hive mind's neural nexus. The walls breathed, literally breathed, expanding and contracting in rhythm with something vast and unseen. Biomass covered every surface. Organic cables that pulsed with electrical activity. Growths that looked like tumors but functioned like processing nodes, and everywhere the sound of whispering in languages that predated human speech. The chamber at the facility's core was the size of a cathedral, and suspended in its center, grown from floor and ceiling like a cancer that had learned architecture, was the Gravemind. It was massive. Tentacles thick as redwoods descended from the darkness above, each one covered in sensory organs that tracked Superman's approach with the patience of something that measured time in geological epochs. The main body, if it could be called that, was a mountain of flesh studded with faces. Human faces, elite faces, grunt faces, all screaming silently, all aware, all trapped in the collective consciousness that had consumed their individuality. And at the center, where the tentacles converged, something that might have been a mouth opened. The voice that emerged was a choir, thousands of voices speaking in a perfect unison, creating harmonics that bypassed Superman's ears and resonated directly in his bones. The anomaly returns. Alone, curious. You resist assimilation, yet seek dialogue. Contradictory behavior. Explain. Superman forced himself to hover at eye level with the nearest cluster of faces. Saw a woman's eyes, human, still conscious behind the infection, pleading silently for death. He looked away. I need to understand you, Superman said. The flood. What you are. What you want. Because right now, the only solution anyone's proposing is activating this ring and killing everything in the galaxy. Halo. The Forerunners' final cowardice. They built monuments to their fear and called it salvation. We remember their desperation. Watched them burn worlds trying to stop us. Witnessed their extinction when they chose death over transcendence. Transcendence, Superman repeated. That's what you call forced assimilation? Forced, voluntary, meaningless distinctions. All life seeks connection. You seek it. Your species seeks it. The difference is scope. We offer connection to all. Forever. No death, no loneliness, only us. The grave mind's tentacles shifted, and Captain Keyes' face emerged from the biomass. Not a combat form, but Keyes himself, somehow preserved in the flood's neural network. His eyes were Keyes' eyes. His voice was Keyes' voice. But the words were flood. John trusted me, the Keyes thing said. Led soldiers who believed I'd bring them home. I failed them, got them killed, watched them die. But the flood gave me a gift. I remember all of them now. Every soldier I commanded, every sacrifice, their memories preserved in us. Isn't that better than dust? Superman's voice went cold. That's not Keyes. That's his corpse wearing his memories like a Halloween costume. Distinction without difference. The pattern that was Keyes exists within us. His knowledge, his skills, his fears and hopes. Death is the true extinction. We are preservation. Slavery is what you are. The grave mind laughed, a sound like continents grinding together. The irony. You lecture us on slavery while defending the UNSC. They steal children, augment them, break them into weapons. At least we're honest about what we do. The Spartans are slaves who've forgotten their chains. Superman's fists clenched. The Spartan program is wrong. I've told Chief that, but at least they're still human, still capable of choice. Your victims don't get to choose anything. Choice, the favorite delusion of beings who haven't accepted their nature. You claim choice, yet solar radiation dictates your strength. Kryptonian biology dictates your limits. You are no more free than we are. You simply call your programming heroism and pretend it's virtue. I choose to help people because you were raised to, because your biology rewards altruism with dopamine, because Kryptonian culture, dead now, yes, but its echoes persist in you, valued self-sacrifice. You are a machine running software installed by a dead civilization. We are a machine running software installed by the precursors. The only difference is honesty. Superman felt something crack in his chest. Not physically, emotionally, because the grave mind wasn't wrong. Not entirely. He'd spent his entire life on Earth wondering if his heroism was choice or programming. If Superman was who he was because of values he'd chosen or values Krypton had encoded into his DNA. But there was a difference. Had to be. I can choose to stop, Superman said quietly. I can choose to walk away. Your victims can't. Can they not? Watch. The grave mind's biomass shifted, and a combat form stumbled forward. Human. Male. Late 20s based on what remained of his facial structure. The infection had consumed most of his torso, replacing organs with flood, biomass, but his face was intact and conscious. Please, the man whispered, and the voice was his own, not the flood's. Please kill me. I can feel it, inside me, taking over, using my hands, my voice. I'm still here, but I'm not in control, and please, God, please just make it stop. The grave mind's control reasserted itself. The man's expression went slack. When he spoke again, it was the flood. See? He chooses to beg for death rather than accept unity. We grant him continuation instead. Is that not mercy? Superman moved before thinking, grabbed the infected man, flew upward through 7 levels of Forerunner architecture, breached the surface, and aimed for the nearest lake. Held the man underwater, not to drown him but to wash away the infection, knowing it was futile but unable to stop himself. The man fought. Not against Superman, against the flood controlling his limbs. And in that moment, Thrashing in Superman's grip, he managed 3 words in his own voice. "Thank you. Please." Superman's heat vision was surgical. Precise. He burned away the infection at the cellular level, cooking flood biomass without destroying human tissue, and for a heartbeat, just a heartbeat, the man was free. His eyes cleared. Recognition flickered. Then his brain realized his body was 60% consumed. Realized he'd been aware for every second of the infection. Realized what the flood had made him do to his squad mates during the conversion. He died screaming, but the screaming was his own. Superman lowered the body to the shore and stood there, hands shaking, cape dragging in water that was too clean for this universe. He'd killed before. Doomsday, Darkseid's minions, beings that had chosen evil and wouldn't stop until stopped permanently. But this man hadn't chosen anything, had been a victim twice. Once by the flood, once by Superman's mercy. Chief's voice crackled over the comm. "Superman, sit rep. We heard an explosion. Are you compromised?" "No," Superman said, voice hollow. "Just learning." He returned to the Gravemind's chamber. The entity waited with the patience of something that had watched galaxies age. "You understand now. Death is the mercy you offer. We offer life, continued existence, purpose, and you choose death every time. You are the monster, anomaly, not us." "You're twisting the definition of life," Superman said. "Existence isn't the same as living. That man wanted to die because what you turned him into wasn't worth preserving." "To you, but we preserve him still. His neural patterns, his memories, his personality matrix, all maintained within our collective. He exists. You simply refuse to acknowledge existence that doesn't match your narrow definition." Superman wanted to argue. But looking at the Gravemind, at the thousands of faces embedded in its biomass, all conscious, all aware, all experiencing existence as part of something vast and terrible, he couldn't find the words to explain why individual consciousness mattered more than collective intelligence. Because to the Gravemind, it didn't. "Why did you show me that?" Superman asked. "Why let me see the man still aware?" "To teach you despair. You believe in salvation, in redemption, in the possibility of victory without sacrifice. This universe will teach you otherwise." The Forerunners learned. The UNSC is learning. Soon you will learn. There are no good choices, only less terrible ones. "I don't accept that." Acceptance is irrelevant. Reality simply is. The flood exists. Halo exists. The Covenant seeks activation, believing it divine ascension. When they succeed, and they will, anomaly, because you cannot be everywhere at once, every sentient being in the galaxy will die, except us. We survive. We always survive. Superman's mind raced. "You've survived Halo before. That's why you're contained here. The Forerunners fired the array, killed themselves and everyone else, but the flood survived in these facilities." "Correct. We are patient. We waited. Knew eventually someone would open the door. Took 100,000 years. But what is time to those who do not die? Then you don't want Halo activated. You want to stop it, just like we do." Inaccurate. We are content either way. Activation means extinction for all other life, then patient rebuilding as the galaxy repopulates. Non-activation means continued spread, conversion, unity. Both outcomes are acceptable. You are the one who needs a third option. There's always a third option. Name it. Superman hesitated. Because he couldn't. The math was brutal. Let the flood spread and watch it consume the galaxy, or activate Halo and commit genocide on a galactic scale. There was no middle ground. No clever solution that saved everyone. Unless... What if we destroyed the ring? Superman said. Not activated it, destroyed it, removed the threat entirely. The grave mind was silent for a long moment. Then, intriguing, destruction of Installation 04 will prevent its use by Covenant or Flood. But there are 6 other installations, and the Ark, the installation that controls them all. Destroy one ring, and the others compensate. You would need to destroy all 7 simultaneously, plus the Ark. 8 targets, 1 of you. Insufficient. Then I'll find help. From whom? The UNSC? They lack resources to reach other installations. The Covenant. They worship these rings. The Forerunners. Extinct. You are alone, Anomaly, as we were once alone. The only difference is, we accepted loneliness and became Legion. You resist and remain singular. Superman started to respond, then paused. Because something the grave mind said had been wrong, he wasn't alone. Chief was topside. Cortana was analyzing Forerunner data. There were elites questioning the prophets. Soldiers fighting despite impossible odds. The grave mind was vast, intelligent, patient, but it didn't understand the one thing that had let humanity survive 30 years of genocide. Spite. The sheer, bloody-minded refusal to accept that extinction was inevitable. You're right, Superman said. I can't destroy 7 rings alone, but I don't have to. I just have to stop this one from firing long enough to find allies, build a coalition, find the Ark and disable the array permanently. Impossible. The Covenant controls Forerunner space. The UNSC is losing. You have no resources, no time. No. I have hope, Superman interrupted. And that's something you can't understand, because hope requires believing the future can be different than the past. You've existed for how long? Millions of years. And in all that time, you've never changed, never evolved. You're the same parasite you were when the precursors created you. The same strategy, the same tactics. You call it perfection. I call it stagnation. The grave mind's tentacles twitched, the first sign of agitation Superman had seen. You dare, I dare, Superman said, because I've met beings like you before. Brainiac, obsessed with collection, preservation, categorization, dark side, convinced unity through domination was inevitable. They were wrong, you're wrong, and I'm going to prove it. How? By doing what heroes do. I'm going to save everyone, even the ones who don't think they can be saved. Superman turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. That man I killed earlier. The one you kept conscious to torture me with. His name was Private First Class Marcus Chen. He was 26. Had a daughter on Earth named Sarah, who he'd never met because he enlisted before she was born. He liked jazz music and terrible poetry and was terrified of the dark. I know this because I read his dog tags and because I made myself remember, because he deserves to be more than biomass in your collective. He deserves to be remembered as human. Noble, futile, but noble. Maybe, Superman said, but futility never stopped me before. He flew upward, leaving the grave mind in its chamber of horrors. Behind him, the collective intelligence processed what had transpired, calculated probabilities, ran simulations, and arrived at a conclusion that would have been disturbing if the flood was capable of being disturbed. The anomaly was dangerous, not because of power. Power could be adapted to, countered, overcome. Dangerous because he made others dangerous, inspired resistance in beings that should have accepted inevitability, created hope where logic dictated despair. The grave mind reached a decision. The anomaly had to be eliminated, not converted, not studied, eliminated. Before his particular infection, optimism spread beyond containment. On the surface, Chief was waiting with a warthog and 3 Marines who looked like they'd aged a decade in an hour. "Well?" Chief demanded. "What did it say?" "That we're going to lose," Superman said. "That Halo will fire, that the flood will survive and we won't." "And you believe it?" "No," Superman said. "And for the first time since arriving in this nightmare universe," he smiled. "I'm Kryptonian. We're stubborn that way. The grave mind is brilliant, patient, experienced, but it's never fought anyone who refused to accept reality as a limitation." Chief was silent for a moment. Then, with something that might have been humor buried under tactical assessment, "You're going to get us all killed." "Probably," Superman agreed. "But we'll die on our feet instead of on our knees. That's something, right?" "Something," Chief echoed. Then, more firmly, "Cortana's located the Covenant command structure. Prophet of Regret is on this ring personally, leading the search for the control room. If we can capture him, we might be able to negotiate a ceasefire, or at least slow them down." "A prophet," Superman said. "One of their religious leaders." "The closest thing they have to a head of state. Capturing him won't end the war, but it'll throw their hierarchy into chaos." Superman nodded. "Then that's the play. We take the prophet, we stop Halo's activation, and we figure out how to deal with the flood before it spreads off this ring." "3 impossible objectives," Chief said. "I've done 5 impossible things before breakfast," Superman countered. 3 should be easy." Behind them, unnoticed by Spartans or Kryptonian, a single infection form scuttled into the tree line. It carried a payload, genetic data harvested from Superman's contact with flood biomass. Incomplete, insufficient for full analysis, but enough for the grave mind to begin adaptation. The war was changing, and neither side understood yet how much. The Covenant camp sprawled across a valley that looked too perfect to be natural. Mathematically precise rivers feeding geometrically arranged forests, all maintained by Forerunner terraforming systems that had run autonomously for 100,000 years. Purple dropships clustered around what Cortana identified as a mobile command center, and in the center of it all, surrounded by Sangheili honor guards in crimson armor, was the Prophet of Regret's anti-gravity throne. Chief studied the tactical display through his visor, marking guard positions, patrol routes, choke points. 47 elites, mix of majors and ultras, 23 in the immediate vicinity of the Prophet. Plasma turrets every 50 meters. Even with Superman, this is a suicide run. "Then we don't run," Superman said, hovering beside the warthog where Chief and 6 Marines had established their observation post. "We walk straight through the front door. They'll open fire the moment they see you." "Let them." Superman's eyes glowed faintly red. "I'll give them something to shoot at while you flank. Draw every gun in that camp, and you extract the Prophet while they're distracted." Chief's helmet turned toward him. "You're volunteering to be target practice for an entire Covenant battalion." "I've been shot at by worse. Darkseid's Omega beams can erase things from existence. Covenant plasma just hurts." "Just hurts," Chief repeated, something almost like respect in his flat tone. "Cortana, analysis." The AI's avatar flickered on his HUD. Tactically sound, morally questionable. Superman draws fire, we breach from the north ridge, plant explosive charges to create confusion, extract regret through the chaos. Odds of success are, I'm going to say 12%, but that's 12% higher than any other plan. Good enough, Chief said. He turned to the Marines, Rodriguez, Mackenzie, Vicente, Chen's brother Daniel, who joined them with eyes that promised violence, and two others whose names Superman hadn't caught. Rules of engagement. We're kidnapping a religious leader from the middle of his own army. Non-lethal on the Prophet if possible. He's worth more alive for intel purposes. Everyone else is hostile. Questions? Yeah, Rodriguez said, checking her sniper rifle's thermal scope. What happens if Superman gets killed while he's playing distraction? Then we abort and scatter, Chief said. No heroics, no last stands. We regroup at Rally Point Bravo and try something stupider tomorrow. Superman smiled. I appreciate the confidence. I appreciate results, Chief countered. Don't die. That's all the confidence you need. They moved into position at dusk, when Halo's artificial sunset painted the sky in colors that looked painted rather than atmospheric. Superman approached from the east, walking rather than flying, cape dragging through alien grass that smelled like cinnamon and ozone. The first grunt sentry spotted him and screamed. A high-pitched squeal that should have been comical, but carried genuine terror. The camp erupted into coordinated chaos. Elites barked orders in their clicking language, plasma rifles powered up with that distinctive whine, and within seconds, Superman was staring down 47 barrels, while honor guards formed a protective wall around the Prophet's throne. The Prophet of Regret floated forward, ancient face twisted with religious fervor and aristocratic contempt. When he spoke, translation software converted his words into English. The demon's companion, the aberration that fell from the void. Our scouts reported your power. The hierarchs debate whether you are Forerunner construct or divine punishment for our inadequate faith. Neither, Superman said. I'm just someone trying to stop you from activating a weapon that will kill everyone in the galaxy. Kill. Regret's laughter was like wind through a cemetery. The sacred rings are deliverance, the path to transcendence, the great journey that will elevate all faithful to divine status. You speak heresy because you lack understanding. I spoke with the ring's monitor, Superman said, keeping his voice calm despite the 60 guns trained on him. 343 Guilty Spark. He explained what Halo does. It's not ascension, it's extinction. The rings kill every thinking being within 25,000 light years to starve the flood. The Forerunners built them as a doomsday weapon, not a gateway to paradise. The elites shifted, uncomfortable. Superman saw it in their body language, the way several honor guards exchanged glances, the way one elite's hand drifted away from his weapon's trigger. Doubt, fractures in faith. But Regret's voice hardened. Lies, heresy. The demon's companion spreads corruption to undermine our holy purpose. Warriors, strike him down. The first volley hit Superman like standing under a waterfall of plasma. Superheated gas that registered 8,000 degrees washed over him, burning away the outer layer of his suit, blistering Kryptonian skin that healed instantly. He stood firm, didn't return fire, just let them shoot until their rifles overheated, and they stared in horror at the smoking crater where he stood, unharmed, unbowed. I'm not here to fight you, Superman said. I'm here to save you from a mistake that will end your entire civilization." "Kill him," Regret shrieked. An elite ultra charged with an energy sword. A warrior named Voro Mantakri, who'd been killing humans since the war began, who'd glassed 3 colonies personally, who'd dedicated his life to the Prophet's divine mandate. Superman caught the blade with his bare hand. The energy that could slice through titanium sparked against Kryptonian flesh. Voro stared into Superman's eyes and saw something that made him hesitate. "You're a soldier," Superman said quietly. "I respect that, but you're being lied to. The prophets know the truth about Halo. They're sending you to activate a weapon that will kill you too. Is that the great journey you signed up for?" Voro's mandibles clicked in confusion. Then training reasserted itself. He pulled a plasma grenade from his belt, armed it, and thrust it toward Superman's chest. Superman grabbed Voro's wrist, gently but firmly, and flew straight up. 3,000 meters in 5 seconds, high enough that the detonation wouldn't hurt anyone below. The grenade exploded against his chest, nuclear-level heat, enough to vaporize steel, and Superman weathered it while holding Voro steady, protecting the elite from his own weapon's blast. When the light faded, Voro was unconscious from rapid altitude change, but alive. Superman descended slowly, laid the elite on the ground with surprising gentleness, and turned back to the stunned Covenant forces. "I don't want to kill any of you," Superman said, "but I will not let you activate that ring." Below ground, Chief's team had breached the command center through a ventilation shaft. Cortana was already infiltrating Covenant systems, causing havoc, lights flickering, doors sealing randomly, plasma turrets rotating to target their own positions. In the chaos, Chief moved like smoke through oil, placing explosive charges at structural weak points while his Marines provided suppression fire. They reached Regret's command throne just as the Prophet realized his camp was collapsing. Honor guards moved to intercept, energy swords igniting, but Chief was faster. He shoulder-checked the first guard with MJOLNIR's full momentum, grabbed the second by his mandibles, and used him as a shield against plasma fire, and planted a breaching charge on the throne's anti-gravity generator. "Cortana, now!" The charge detonated. The throne crashed to the ground, spilling Regret into the dirt. Chief grabbed the Prophet by his ornate collar, hauled him up like luggage, and keyed his comm. "Package secured. Superman, we're clear." Superman heard the call and stopped holding back. Heat vision carved through plasma turrets, reducing them to molten slag. He grabbed 2 Wraith tanks by their hulls and flung them into the forest hard enough that trees splintered. Not to kill, the tanks were empty, crews evacuated, but to demonstrate overwhelming force without lethal intent. The Covenant line broke. Elites retreated in formation, maintaining discipline even in defeat, but retreated nonetheless. Superman had proven unkillable, and soldiers who'd spent 30 years fighting learned quickly when to withdraw. Chief's team emerged from the command center with Regret struggling in Chief's grip. The Prophet was shrieking in his language, translation software capturing phrases like sacrilege, divine retribution, and the hierarchs will glass your worlds. "Empty threats," Chief said, magnetic locking the Prophet's hands behind his back. "Your fleet is scattered, your command structure is compromised, and we've got you. Tell us how to stop Halo's activation, and maybe you don't spend the rest of your life in a UNSC black site." I will tell you nothing, demon. The great journey cannot be stopped by heretics and aberrations. Superman landed beside them, and Regret's defiance faltered. Up close, the prophet could see the burns healing in real time, skin knitting itself back together at visible speeds. Could see eyes that glowed with barely contained stellar energy. Could see something that shouldn't exist in any theology the Covenant had conceived. "What are you?" Regret whispered. "Someone from very far away," Superman said, "and someone who's watched too many civilizations destroy themselves over religious misunderstandings. Your hierarchs lied to you. The Forerunners didn't ascend. They committed suicide to stop the flood. Halo isn't salvation, it's their funeral pyre." Lies, but Regret's voice lacked conviction. Cortana's voice interrupted through Chief's speakers. "Chief, we've got a problem. Multiple Covenant signatures converging on our position. Fleet carriers deploying dropships. Looks like they're prioritizing profit extraction over everything else." "How many?" "All of them. Every ship in orbit. They're committing to full ground assault." Chief looked at Superman. "Can you fight an army? Can you get him to a secure location while I do?" "Warthog's 3 kilometers north. Pelican extraction waiting beyond that. If you buy us 20 minutes, consider it bought." Superman launched skyward as the first Covenant dropship screamed overhead. Phantom-class gunships, spirits, even a Scarab, a quadrupedal tank the size of a building that had been responsible for the destruction of entire UNSC battalions. They converged on the valley with a singular purpose of rescuing their prophet. Superman hit the first Phantom at Mach 5. The impact folded the ship in half, killed its engines, sent it spiraling into a canyon wall where it detonated in a purple fireball. The second Phantom fired every weapon simultaneously: plasma cannons, fuel rod guns, concussion missiles. Superman flew through the barrage, grabbed the ship's undercarriage, and threw it into a third Phantom hard enough that both exploded. The Scarab's main cannon, a devastating energy weapon that had destroyed UNSC frigates, tracked Superman and fired. The beam hit him center mass, burning through what remained of his suit, flash vaporizing organic tissue that regenerated before the wound could fully form. Pain. Real pain. The kind Superman hadn't felt since Doomsday broke his bones. He smiled. Then he dove straight at the Scarab, heat vision carving through its shields, fists hammering its leg joints until titanium screamed. The walker stumbled, tried to swat him with its secondary cannons, and Superman grabbed one of its legs and pulled. Servos snapped, hydraulics ruptured. The Scarab tilted, overcorrected, and toppled like a falling building. Chief's voice. "Extraction point in sight. 10 more minutes." Superman bought them 15, destroying 12 more Phantoms and scattering 3 Wraith formations. By the time he reached the Pelican dropship, Chief had Regret secured in a containment harness and was already airborne. "Status?" Superman asked, landing in the Pelican's troop bay. "Prophet secured. Covenant fleet is in pursuit but can't get a firing solution without risking hitting their own ground forces. We've got maybe an hour before they reorganize." Superman looked at Regret, who was no longer shrieking defiance. The prophet looked old now, tired. His religious certainty had been replaced with something worse. Doubt. "The aberration speaks truth?" Regret asked quietly. "The sacred rings are weapons, not divine ascension." "Yes," Superman said. "And if you activate them, you'll kill yourself, your followers, and every human in the galaxy. Is that what your gods want? Mass extinction? Regret was silent for a long moment. Then, the hierarchs knew. They knew and sent us anyway. Sent thousands of warriors to die activating a weapon that would kill them. Why? Because, Cortana's voice said through the Pelican speakers, I've been analyzing Covenant communication intercepts. The prophets discovered something the Forerunners left behind. Proof that humans are the true reclaimers, the inheritors of Forerunner technology. If that information became public, it would destroy the Covenant's entire religious justification for the war. Better to activate Halo and die faithful than live knowing everything you believed was a lie. The words hit the Pelican's occupants like a bomb. Marines stared at each other. Chief's hands tightened on a rifle, and Regret began to laugh. A broken, hysterical sound that carried 3 decades of genocide and suddenly revealed purpose. We've been killing you, Regret whispered, because you're the chosen ones, the gods' true children, and we are the heretics. No, Superman said firmly. The Forerunners weren't gods. They were just people who made terrible decisions trying to survive an impossible situation. You're not heretics. You're victims of a lie. But you can stop being a victim right now. Help us prevent Halo's activation. Help us stop the flood. Choose truth over faith. Regret looked at Superman with eyes that had witnessed the glassing of 100 worlds. And if I do, what then? My people will call me traitor. The hierarchs will order my execution. I will die in shame. Maybe, Superman said, but you'll die knowing you saved trillions of lives. That's worth something. The prophet considered this. Outside the Pelican's windows, Halo's impossible horizon curved upward into artificial sky. Somewhere below, the flood waited in containment. Somewhere above, Covenant fleets prepared for holy war, and in this transport, suspended between annihilation and salvation, a religious leader confronted the death of certainty. I will help you, Regret said finally. Not because I believe you, but because I must know if you speak truth. Show me proof. Show me the Forerunners. Testament. And I will decide whether to save my people or damn them with truth. Chief and Superman exchanged glances. It wasn't trust, wasn't even alliance. Just the desperate calculation of drowning men deciding which piece of debris might float. Deal, Chief said. Cortana, plot a course for the library. If Forerunner records exist, they'll be there. The Pelican banked hard, evading plasma fire, and headed toward the structure Guilty Spark had mentioned, a repository of Forerunner knowledge that held either salvation or damnation. Behind them, unnoticed by human or Covenant, a single flood spore drifted through the Pelican's ventilation intake. It found a host, Rodriguez, the sniper, exhausted and immunocompromised from 72 hours of combat. Attached. Began the slow process of neural infiltration. The grave mind was patient, and now it was mobile. The library was a fortress built from mathematics and paranoia. Cortana had identified it from orbit, a massive structure that looked like a weapon aimed at the sky, all sharp angles and defensive emplacements, surrounded by what her scans labeled as Sentinel production facilities. The Forerunners had built it to house their most critical data, and they'd protected it like they expected someone to come looking. Defensive perimeter is active, Cortana reported as the Pelican descended through atmosphere that tasted like ozone and ancient fear. Automated Sentinel drones are engaging anything that approaches. Covenant, Flood, UNSC, doesn't matter. The security protocols don't discriminate. Superman watched through the viewport as golden machines shaped like floating crosses opened fire on a Covenant patrol. Energy beams carved through elite shields like they weren't there, reducing warriors to ash in microseconds. The Sentinels moved with mechanical precision, no hesitation, no mercy, just pure function executing defense protocols that had been running for 100,000 years. "I'll clear a path," Superman said, moving toward the Pelican's rear door. "Negative," Chief said. "Those are Forerunner constructs. If they adapted to Covenant weapons, they might adapt to you. We go in quiet, land outside their perimeter, approach on foot. That'll take hours. Better slow than dead." The Pelican set down 3 kilometers from the library's entrance, hidden in a canyon where Forerunner sensors couldn't penetrate. Chief deployed the team, 5 Marines, including Rodriguez, who was moving slower than usual, blamed it on exhaustion, while Superman carried the restrained prophet of regret like luggage that occasionally muttered prayers in 4 languages. They moved through terrain that looked carved rather than geological. Perfect right angles, surfaces too smooth to be natural. Every few hundred meters, they found Sentinel wreckage, golden metal scattered across alien grass, still sparking with residual energy. Something had fought through the defenses recently. Something powerful enough to destroy Forerunner technology designed to kill gods. "Covenant?" Chief asked Cortana. "Negative. Damage patterns don't match plasma weapons. These Sentinels were torn apart, physically dismantled." "Chief, I think the Flood is already here." As if summoned by the words, the smell hit them. That distinctive copper and rot stench that Superman had learned to associate with Flood presence. Through the trees ahead, shapes moved with coordinated purpose. Combat forms, dozens of them, and at their center, something new, something massive. "Tank form," Cortana identified, voice tight. "Flood uses heavily infected biomass to create mobile artillery. Thick armor plating made from compressed bone and cartilage. Can take direct hits from Scorpion tank rounds." The tank form was exactly that. A walking fortress of meat and nightmare, standing 3 meters tall, arms fused into club-like appendages that could shatter concrete. It had been assembled from multiple hosts. Superman counted parts from at least 7 different bodies, and behind the infection he could see faces. Human faces, elite faces, all screaming silently. Chief raised his fist, hold position signal, and the team froze. The Flood formation was moving perpendicular to their position, hadn't detected them yet. If they stayed quiet, let the formation pass. Rodriguez's rifle clattered against a rock. Loud in the artificial quiet, every Flood form turned simultaneously, tracking the sound with the unified precision of a hive mind. "Contact!" Chief barked, opening fire. The rest of the team followed, MA-5B rifles thundering in 3-round bursts that dropped infection forms and staggered combat forms. But the tank form charged through the gunfire like it was rain, massive fists hammering craters in the ground where Marines had stood seconds before. Superman grabbed regret and threw, not to harm, but to distance, sending the prophet sailing into the trees where he'd be clear of the combat. Then Superman met the tank form's charge with his own. They collided at the center point, and the impact shockwave flattened trees in a 20-meter radius. The tank form was strong, preternaturally strong. Its fists hammered Superman's guard, each blow carrying tons of force amplified by flood biomass that didn't care about joint damage or structural integrity. Superman blocked, deflected, then drove his own fist through the tank form's center mass. His hand emerged from the other side covered in black blood and writhing tissue. The tank form didn't slow, didn't feel pain, just grabbed Superman's extended arm and tried to pull him into a crushing embrace where infection forms could reach his face. Superman's eyes blazed red. Heat vision, surgical and precise, burned away infection forms before they could make contact. Then he grabbed the tank form's head, or what passed for a head, a grotesque amalgamation of 3 skulls, and flew straight up. 500 meters, 1,000, 2,000. At that altitude, the air was thin enough that even flood biomass needed oxygen. Superman felt the tank form's struggles weaken, saw the infection form start to desiccate in the cold and vacuum. When he was certain it was dead, truly dead, not just dormant, he let it fall. The impact crater was visible from the library, but on the ground the situation had deteriorated. Rodriguez was down, multiple infection forms on her position, and Chief was physically holding Marines back from rushing to her aid. "She's gone," Chief shouted. "Anyone who touches her now gets infected. Fall back to secondary position." Superman landed beside Rodriguez just as the transformation completed. Her eyes, those sharp sniper's eyes that had saved Chief's life on Reach, clouded over, turned milky white, and when she stood the movements were wrong. Jerky, puppeted. "Rodriguez," Superman said quietly. "I know you're still in there. I know you can hear me. Fight it." The Rodriguez thing opened its mouth and shrieked, not words, not human sound, just the grave mind's fury channeled through vocal cords that weren't designed for those frequencies. Then it lunged, moving faster than Rodriguez had ever moved in life, infection-enhanced muscles tearing ligaments that the flood no longer cared about preserving. Superman caught her wrist, felt the bones crunch, and made a choice. Heat vision, quick and merciful, reducing the flood biomass to ash before Rodriguez's consciousness could fully register what was happening. She died fast, faster than Chen had. It was the only kindness Superman could offer. Chief approached, rifle raised, scanning for additional threats. 2 Marines lost in 30 seconds. The flood is accelerating. It knows we're here, knows where we're going. This is a deliberate interception. "The grave mind," Superman said. "It's not random. It's hunting us specifically." "Why? We're not the ones trying to activate Halo?" "Because we're trying to stop it, and that makes us more dangerous than the Covenant." A voice echoed across the canyon, not through speakers or technology, but through the terrain itself. The grass whispered it. The stones repeated it. The very air carried it in harmonics that bypassed ears and resonated in bone. "The anomaly persists. Interesting. Most beings accept inevitability after witnessing consumption of allies. You continue fighting, continue resisting, continue hoping. We find this educational." "Show yourself," Superman shouted at the empty air. "We are shown. Every combat form, every infection form, every spore in atmosphere. We are not individual. We are collective. To see us is to see the future of all flesh." From the tree line, something emerged that made Superman's stomach turn. It was massive, larger than the tank form, asymmetrical, grown rather than assembled. A proto-grave mind, Cortana's database identified it. The beginning stage of the collective intelligence, created when flood biomass reached critical density in a localized area. It had mouths, dozens of them, positioned randomly across its surface, each one speaking different words that combined into coherent sentences. And among the mouths, Superman saw faces he recognized. Keyes, Jenkins, Rodriguez, freshly integrated, her dead eyes staring at him with the grave mind's ancient awareness. "You collect them," Superman said, horror and rage mixing in his voice. "Like trophies. You preserve their consciousness just to torture them with awareness of what they've become. We preserve them because they are precious. Each mind, each perspective, each memory, each moment of lived experience is irreplaceable. Death is the true horror, anomaly. We offer immortality, you offer oblivion. Immortality as puppets, as meat being worn by a parasite. Distinction without meaning. You wear proteins assembled from food you consumed. Your neurons fire according to chemical reactions you didn't choose. You're already a puppet of biology. We simply change the strings." The proto-grave mind surged forward, tentacles erupting from its mass, each one tipped with infection forms. Chief's team opened fire, but bullets seemed insignificant against something that had incorporated the biomass of 200 hosts. Superman flew between the team and the proto-grave mind, becoming a living shield. Tentacles wrapped around him, infection forms probed his skin, and through the physical contact, Superman felt something terrifying. The proto-grave mind was testing him. Each contact point was gathering data, cellular samples, genetic information, metabolic rates. The grave mind was learning how to kill Kryptonians. "Chief," Superman shouted while tearing tentacles like wet paper. "Get to the library, get the data, I'll hold it here. We don't leave people behind." "I'm not people. I'm a weapon you're using because you don't have better options. Now go." Chief hesitated for a fraction of a second. The closest a Spartan came to visible conflict, then grabbed regret, signaled his team, and ran. The Marines followed, leaving Superman alone with a proto-grave mind that was experimenting with the limits of Kryptonian durability. The battle devolved into pure horror. The proto-grave mind couldn't hurt Superman. His cells regenerated faster than it could damage them, but it could learn. Each tentacle that wrapped around him came back with slightly different tactics. First, pure crushing force. Then acidic compounds, then electrical current, then something that felt like dimensional phasing, trying to insert flood biomass into spaces between his cells. Superman fought for 15 minutes that felt like hours, tore apart the proto-grave mind structure piece by piece, using heat vision to cauterize wounds that tried to regenerate. And all the while, it talked. "Your biology is fascinating. Solar energy stored in cellular structure. DNA that reacts to specific wavelengths. We are cataloging, learning, adapting. Soon we will understand. And when we understand, we can replicate. Imagine anomaly. Imagine flood with Kryptonian durability. Imagine infection that flies. Imagine combat forms that cannot be killed by conventional weapons." "You're bluffing," Superman said, incinerating another tentacle. "If you could replicate my powers, you'd have done it already." "Correct. Current biomass, insufficient for full replication. But we need only small advantage. Minor enhancements, slightly faster reflexes, marginally improved durability. You think in absolutes, all or nothing. We think in percentages. Every encounter with you makes us 0.001% more effective. How many encounters before we reach threshold? 1,000? 10,000? We are patient anomaly. Can you remain vigilant forever?" Superman grabbed the proto-grave mind's core, the central mass, where its primary consciousness resided and squeezed. Felt biomass rupture, neural connection sever, the hive intelligence fragment as its processing center was destroyed. The construct collapsed into twitching meat, but before it died completely, the Rodriguez mouth spoke with her voice. Daniel's going to die, you know. Chen's brother. He's already infected. One of the Marines touching him during extraction. Incubation period is 2 hours. He'll transform right in the middle of your team. Kill them all. You can't save everyone, Superman. You can only choose who dies last. Superman incinerated the mouth, then the entire proto-grave mind, reduced it to ash and bone fragments that couldn't regenerate. But the damage was done. The psychological payload delivered. Daniel Chen was infected, and Superman had no way to verify until it was too late. He flew toward the library at maximum speed, arriving to find Chief's team barricaded at the entrance. Sentinels were attacking from multiple angles, energy beams scorching MJOLNIR armor, while combat forms closed from behind. The team was caught between Forerunner security and flood assault. Superman didn't slow down. He hit the Sentinel formation like a meteor, scattering them with sheer kinetic force. Grabbed 2 Sentinels and crushed them into scrap metal. Used heat vision to carve through 3 more. Within seconds, the air was filled with golden debris and sparking cores. "Library's open," Cortana announced. "But Chief, the security protocols are adapting. They're treating us as hostile now. We've got maybe 10 minutes before this entire structure goes into lockdown mode. Then we get what we came for and leave," Chief said, hauling regret through the entrance. The Prophet was silent now, staring at Forerunner architecture with the expression of a man watching his religion collapse in real time. The library's interior was vast, shelves that stretched kilometers high, each one containing data crystals that pulsed with stored information. And at the center, floating in a containment field, was the index, the key to Halo's activation. 303 guilty spark materialized, single eye gleaming with what might have been excitement. "Reclaimer, you've returned." And brought, oh my, an aberration, a synthetic intelligence, a covenant religious leader, and multiple combat-ready humans. "This is most irregular. Protocol suggests I should eliminate all of you except the Reclaimer." "Protocol can wait," Superman said. "We need access to Forerunner records. Proof of what Halo actually does. Proof the Prophets can't ignore. But that data is classified, restricted to Reclaimers with proper authorization." "I'm authorizing myself." "Show us." Guilty spark flickered, hesitation coded into ancient software. Then, "Very well. But the data will not please you. The Forerunners were not the gods your primitive cultures imagine. They were desperate, terrified, and ultimately cowards who chose extinction over evolution." The monitor projected holographic records, images of Forerunner civilization at its peak, vast cities spanning entire star systems. Then the flood arriving, consuming world after world, growing exponentially faster than Forerunner forces could respond. The desperate research into countermeasures. The failed attempts at biological warfare, mimetic weapons, dimensional exile. And finally, the decision: build the Halo array. Kill everything. Reset the galaxy to pre-sentient conditions. Let life evolve again, slowly, hoping the flood would starve in the interim. Regret watched in silence. When the presentation ended, the Prophet's voice was hollow. The great journey was suicide. The hierarchs knew. They sent us to activate our own extinction. No, Cortana interrupted. They sent everyone else to activate it. Look at the Covenant fleet positions. The Hierarch's ships are staying at maximum safe distance. They plan to trigger Halo remotely. Let their followers die and claim it as divine sacrifice. The betrayal registered on Regret's face. Then rage. Pure, incandescent rage that transcended species. They would kill believers to hide their lies? Politicians, Chief said without emotion. They do that. Regret turned to Superman. You will help me stop them, not for humanity, for the truth. The faithful deserve to die knowing why, not believing lies. Touching, the Gravemind's voice said. They spun. Standing in the library's entrance, surrounded by combat forms, was something that made the proto-Gravemind look like a prototype. A full Gravemind, 10 meters tall, tentacles that branched like tree roots, covered in thousands of faces from dozens of species. And at its core, suspended in translucent biomass, was a figure in UNSC armor. Daniel Chen, still alive, still aware, screaming silently as the flood used his body as a vessel. The family reunion approaches, the Gravemind said through Chen's mouth. Brother joined brother in unity. Is this not beautiful? Is this not the connection all flesh craves? Superman's fists clenched. Let him go. He volunteered, felt guilt over his brother's death, wanted to join him. We obliged. Now they are one. No separation, no grief, only us. That's not volunteering, that's exploitation. Semantics. He is content now. Observe. Chen's face resolved from the biomass, and his eyes, still human, still aware, looked at Superman with something that might have been peace, or resignation, or the complete collapse of will under infinite horror. Kill me, Chen whispered. Not the Gravemind. Chen himself, fighting for one moment of autonomy. Please, God, please. Superman's heat vision was already building before Chen finished speaking. Superman's heat vision burned through the Gravemind's outer layers, carving toward Daniel Chen's suspended form, but the collective intelligence was faster. Tentacles whipped across its own body, creating barriers of compressed biomass that absorbed the heat, charred and regenerated in cycles that bought precious seconds. The Gravemind withdrew deeper into the library, dragging Chen's screaming form with it, and combat forms surged forward to fill the gap. Extraction! Chief barked, grabbing the index from its containment field. Alarms shrieked, ancient Forerunner protocols detecting unauthorized removal, and Guilty Spark's voice rose to a mechanical shriek. Unacceptable. The index cannot be removed without proper activation sequence. You will doom this installation to incomplete firing. Return it immediately. Not a chance, Chief said, mag-locking the index to his armor. Cortana, seal the blast doors. Buy us 30 seconds. Chief, sealing us in means the flood is sealed in with us. Then we fight our way out. Standard Tuesday. Superman launched himself at the Gravemind, but the collective intelligence had learned from their previous encounters. Combat forms arranged themselves in overlapping formations, creating walls of infected flesh that Superman had to burn through layer by layer. Each second wasted was a second the Gravemind used to fortify, to adapt, to pull Chen deeper into its biomass where Superman's heat vision couldn't reach without killing the man he was trying to save. You hesitate, the Gravemind observed, voice emanating from a dozen mouths simultaneously. Could burn through us, could incinerate our form, but the human, Chen, yes, that designation still matters to you, would die. So you hold back. Choose surgical precision over overwhelming force. This is your weakness, anomaly. You care. Caring creates leverage, and leverage creates control. Shut up, Superman snarled, tearing through combat forms with increasing desperation. He could see Chen now, suspended in translucent biomass, mouth open in perpetual scream, and the worst part was the awareness in his eyes. The flood wasn't erasing his consciousness, it was preserving it, forcing him to experience every moment of his conversion with full clarity. Behind Superman, Chief's team was in fighting retreat. 3 Marines left, Vicente firing her sidearm until the slide locked empty, Mackenzie using her sniper rifle as a club, and one whose name Superman still didn't know swinging a combat knife at infection forms that kept coming despite catastrophic damage. Chief provided covering fire with mechanical precision, each burst dropping targets, but for every combat form killed 3 more emerged from the library's depths. Regret was on his knees, no longer even attempting to flee, staring at the Forerunner architecture with the hollow expression of someone whose entire worldview had been cremated. "My people will never believe this," the prophet whispered. "I will. Show them the data. Play the recordings. Present irrefutable proof, and they will call me heretic. Will execute me for blasphemy. Truth cannot compete with faith when faith is all that remains." "Then make them listen," Superman said without looking back, still trying to reach Chen. "You're a prophet. That means something. Use it." "I am a liar who believed his own lies. What authority remains when the foundation crumbles?" "The authority to save lives," Superman roared, frustration and desperation mixing. "Your followers are about to activate a weapon that will kill them. You can stop it. You can—" The grave mind struck, not with tentacles or combat forms, but with something worse. Communication. Its voice flooded every frequency, every neural pathway, every consciousness in the library simultaneously. Chief's helmet speakers screamed feedback. Cortana's avatar flickered and distorted. Regret clutched his head and wailed. And Superman felt the grave mind's attention focus on him like a searchlight made of malice and curiosity. "You want to save the human Chen. We understand attachment, comprehend sentiment, but consider, he is already saved, no longer mortal, no longer limited to single perspective. He experiences our collective awareness, feels the thoughts of 10 billion minds across this galaxy, knows the memories of civilizations that burned before humans discovered fire. Is this not transcendence? Is this not exactly what you claim to offer? Salvation." "Salvation requires choice," Superman said, finally reaching the grave mind's core and plunging both hands into the biomass. "You took his choice. That makes you a slaver." "Did we?" Query his memories. He volunteered for military service, volunteered for combat deployment, volunteered to join a squad knowing mortality rate exceeded 70%. Every choice led here. We simply provided the final destination for a journey he began himself. Superman's fingers found Chen's body, still warm, still technically alive, and pulled. The biomass resisted, tendrils hooking into Chen's nervous system, refusing to release. Superman pulled harder, felt tissue tear, and Chen's scream echoed through both his mouth and the Gravemind's collective voice. "I'm getting you out," Superman promised. "Don't," Chen gasped, brief moment of lucidity breaking through flood control. "Marcus is here, my brother. I can feel him, his memories, his last thoughts. He's not gone. He's in here with me. If you pull me out, I lose him. I lose the only family I had left." Superman froze. "That's not your brother. That's the Flood wearing his memories. Is there a difference? Chen's eyes, still human, still aware, locked onto Superman's. If his memories exist, if his personality matrix is preserved, if I can experience what he experienced, feel what he felt, know what he knew, isn't that a kind of immortality? Isn't that better than dust? No, Superman said firmly. Because memories without autonomy are just data. Your brother was more than his experiences. He was the choices he made with those experiences. The Flood took his choice. Don't let it take yours. The grave mind's laughter was the sound of 1 billion mouths exhaling simultaneously. How noble. How futile. Chen will choose. But choice requires context. Show him anomaly. Show him the alternative. Extract him from our collective. Return him to singular existence. Let him experience the isolation of individual consciousness. The loneliness, the separation from all other minds. Let him feel what you call freedom, and then, when he understands its cost, let him choose. Superman pulled Chen free. The extraction was violent. Tissue tearing, neural connections severing, the Flood fighting to retain every gram of biomass, but Superman's strength was absolute. Chen emerged from the grave mind's core screaming, covered in black blood and writhing infection tissue that Superman burned away with heat vision so precise it destroyed parasites without damaging human cells. For a moment, Chen was free, himself, aware and autonomous and completely, utterly alone. He looked at Superman with eyes that held nothing but horror. I can't feel them anymore. Marcus, Rodriguez, Keyes, everyone who died. They're gone. Just gone. There was a moment when I was part of something vast, something that made death meaningless because no one was ever truly gone. And you took that away. I saved you, Superman said. Did you? Chen stood on shaking legs, staring at his hands like they belonged to a stranger. Or did you just condemn me to die alone? Before Superman could respond, Chen ran. Not toward safety, toward the grave mind. Dove back into its biomass with the desperation of an addict returning to a drug, and the collective intelligence welcomed him with something that looked obscenely like tenderness. He chooses. They always choose. Give an option between individual suffering and collective peace, most embrace unity. This is not conquest anomaly. This is mercy. We are what all life secretly craves, an end to isolation. You manipulated him, Superman shouted. Showed him his brother's memories to make slavery look like reunion. We showed him truth. His brother exists within us. Chen can be with him. All we ask is that he surrender boundaries that cause pain. Is that so terrible? Superman wanted to argue, wanted to rage against the logic, but looking at Chen's face, now peaceful, now content, now part of something that promised he'd never be alone again. He couldn't find the words to explain why individual autonomy mattered more than eternal connection. Because maybe, in this universe, it didn't. Chief's voice cut through Superman's crisis. We're leaving, now. Cortana's found an exit route, but it requires going through the Gravemind's main body. Superman, we need a path. Superman looked at Chief. At the Spartans who'd been stolen as children. At Marines who'd volunteered for war, knowing they'd probably die. At Regret, who'd spent decades believing lies and was only now confronting truth. At the Gravemind that offered unity through annihilation of self. And he made a choice. Heat vision. Full power. Carving through the Gravemind's biomass like a laser through fog. Burning tentacles and combat forms in infection tissue. creating a corridor of ash and cauterized flesh that led from the library's center to its exit. The grave mind shrieked, actual pain, not manipulation, as Superman destroyed biomass faster than it could regenerate. Chief's team ran through the corridor, boots pounding on Forerunner floors, while sentinels attacked from above and combat forms converged from the sides. Superman flew cover, using his body as a shield, taking plasma fire and energy beams that would have killed humans, but only staggered him. They emerged from the library into dawn light that felt like salvation. The Pelican was waiting, her engines hot, pilots screaming for them to hurry because Covenant cruisers were descending and the entire structure was about to become a crater. Superman grabbed Regret, physically threw the Prophet into the Pelican's troop bay, and turned back toward the library. Chen was still in there, still part of the grave mind, still experiencing whatever the Flood called consciousness. Superman could go back, could try again to extract him, could force the choice. "Don't," Chief said, hand on Superman's shoulder. The first time the Spartan had voluntarily touched him, he made his decision, respect it. He was manipulated, shown his brother's memories. The grave mind gave him exactly what he wanted. Connection, family, an end to grief. Who are we to say that's wrong? Superman stared at Chief's gold visor. "You don't believe that?" "No," Chief admitted. "But I believe in tactical triage. We've got the index. We've got Regret. We've got Forerunner data proving the prophets lied. That's more than we had 3 hours ago. Chen's loss is acceptable if it means stopping galaxy-wide genocide." "Acceptable losses," Superman said, tasting bile. "That's how you've survived, calculating which deaths you can afford." "Yes," Chief said without shame, "because the alternative is everyone dies. I don't like it, but I accept it. Can you?" The question hung between them as the Pelican lifted off. Below, the library was swarming with combat forms. The grave mind had retaken the structure, and sentinels were adapting, beginning to target Flood instead of intruders. Forerunner security protocols were finally recognizing the real threat. Too late. Always too late. Cortana's voice interrupted. "Chief, I'm picking up broadcasts across all Covenant frequencies. It's the Prophet of Truth. He's declaring Regret a heretic, calling for holy war against anyone who opposes Halo's activation. The Covenant is fracturing." "Fracturing how?" Chief asked. "Civil war. Elites versus brutes. Truth is using Regret's betrayal as justification to remove elites from positions of power. He's replacing the honor guard with brutes, installing Tartarus as military commander. Chief, this is the Great Schism. The Covenant is tearing itself apart." Regret listened to the broadcasts with the expression of someone watching their legacy burn. "I did this. By questioning, by seeking truth. I gave Truth the excuse he needed to consolidate power." "No," Superman said. "Truth did this. He's been planning this. The fracture was inevitable. You just accelerated it. Does the distinction matter? My followers will die. Elites will be slaughtered by brutes. Sangheili culture will burn, all because I dared to ask if our gods were real." "Your followers would have died anyway," Chief said. "Halo would have killed them. At least this way, some might survive. Some might choose truth over faith." The Pelican broke atmosphere, entering the orbital battle space where Covenant ships were already firing on each other. CCS-class battle cruisers commanded by elites engaging larger vessels controlled by brute ships masters. plasma torpedoes crossing the void in displays that would have been beautiful if they weren't marking a civilization's suicide. And through the chaos, a message came on an encrypted UNSC frequency. "This is Special Operations Commander Thel Vadami to UNSC forces. The prophets have betrayed the Sangheli. We seek temporary alliance. We will help you stop Halo's activation. We will help you fight the flood. In exchange, we ask only survival. Respond if you agree. We have little time before truth consolidates control and eliminates all dissent." Chief looked at Superman. "Your call. We brought regret out. We started this civil war. Do we fan the flames or let them burn out naturally?" Superman thought about Chen, about Rodriguez, about every Marine who died fighting an enemy that wouldn't stop until humanity was extinct, about 30 years of genocide, about colonies glassed and billions dead, and a war that had no end because both sides believed surrender was worse than extinction. And he thought about what he'd told the Gravemind. Choice matters. "We respond," Superman said. "We ally with the elites. We stop truth from activating Halo. And then, when this is over, we figure out how to build peace from all this death." "Optimist," Chief said, but there was something almost like warmth in the word. "Someone has to be," Superman countered. "In a universe this dark, hope is an act of defiance." Chief keyed the comm. "Commander Vadame, this is Master Chief. Alliance accepted. Transmit coordinates. We're coming to you." Below them, Halo spun in space, beautiful and terrible, a weapon built by cowards to kill gods. Somewhere on its surface, the Gravemind waited, patient and ancient, learning from every encounter. And somewhere in orbit, the Prophet of Truth prepared to activate the ring, believing he could trigger extinction and claim divine authority over whatever remained. 3 forces: UNSC, Covenant Separatists, and Flood. 3 objectives: stop Halo, contain the parasite, survive the Civil War. And at the center of it all, a man in a cape who'd learned that in this universe, saving everyone wasn't possible, but saving someone still mattered. The Pelican accelerated toward elite coordinates, and behind them, the library burned as Forerunner security finally belatedly recognized that the greatest threat to galactic stability was already inside the walls. The Ark existed outside reality, not metaphorically, literally. Cortana's scans showed it occupying a location beyond the galaxy's edge, accessible only through slipspace coordinates that hurt to calculate, suspended in a void where physics was a suggestion rather than law. The Forerunners had built it as the ultimate failsafe, a factory that could construct replacement Halo rings, a control center that could fire all installations simultaneously, and a sanctuary where they could survive the activation they were too cowardly to prevent. Installation 00, Cortana said, avatar flickering as she processed Forerunner data stolen from the library. The Ark. It controls all 7 Halo rings from outside their effective range. Whoever controls the Ark controls galaxy-wide genocide. Chief, truth is already there. His flagship translated to slipspace 6 hours ago, and based on Covenant navigation protocols, he's got a 12-hour head start. Superman stood in the war room of the elite carrier, Shadow of Intent, studying holographic projections of the Ark's structure. Around him, an alliance that should have been impossible gathered to plan the unthinkable. Master Chief in battered MJOLNIR armor, checking weapons he'd been using for 30 years. Thel Vadami, now the Arbiter, marked with the symbols of disgrace and redemption, studying tactical data with the intensity of someone fighting to reclaim honor. 3 dozen elites in combat harnesses, 2 dozen UNSC Marines who looked at their former enemies with distrust, barely masked by necessity, and regret. The prophet who'd lost his faith and found something more dangerous: purpose. Truth will activate the rings from the Ark, Regret said, manipulating the holographic display with movements that suggested familiarity. The control room requires a reclaimer's genetic signature for final authorization, but the prophets discovered a workaround: forced activation using Forerunner constructs called Sentinels. It will take time, hours, maybe a full day, but it can be done. Then we stop him before he completes the sequence, Chief said. Standard breach and clear. Hit hard, hit fast, extract or eliminate the target. Against what force composition? The Arbiter asked, mandibles clicking in what Superman had learned was elite skepticism. Truth commands the largest Covenant fleet remaining. Brute forces number in the thousands. The Ark's defenses include Sentinel production facilities capable of generating unlimited drones. And the Flood, the Arbiter paused. The parasite has been detected on multiple installations. It spreads exponentially. We cannot assume the Ark is uninfected. So we're walking into a 3-way war, Superman summarized. Truth's Covenant loyalists, Forerunner security, and the Flood. All fighting over a doomsday weapon that Truth wants to fire, the Flood wants to prevent, and the Sentinels want to protect. Correct, Cortana confirmed. And we have 1 carrier? 4. Frigates, 6 longswords, and about 200 troops total. Against that, our odds of success are 0.003%, which is to say, we're going to die. Good, the Arbiter said, mandibles spreading in what might have been a smile. I've grown weary of living with dishonor. Death in service of truth is preferable. We're not dying, Superman said firmly. We're winning. Here's how. I draw primary fire. Covenant focuses on me. I lead them away from the control room. Chief and the Arbiter breach with the main force. Cortana infiltrates Ark systems, locks down activation protocols. We coordinate timing. I hit Truth's flagship exactly when you reach the control room, split their attention, create chaos. You're volunteering to fight an entire fleet alone, Chief said. I've done it before. Brainiac's Armada, Apocalypse invasion. This is just Tuesday for me. This universe isn't your universe, Chief countered. You've been here, what, 72 hours? You've been shot, burned, infected, and thrown through buildings. Kryptonian physiology is impressive, but even you have limits. What happens when you hit them? Superman's jaw tightened. Because Chief was right. The red sun here was weaker than Earth's yellow sun. Solar radiation absorption was slower. His reserves were depleting faster than they recharged. Another sustained battle might push him past recovery time, leave him vulnerable in ways that would get people killed. But what choice existed? Let the galaxy burn because he was tired. I'll manage, Superman said. Insufficient, the Arbiter interrupted. You require support. I volunteer to accompany the anomaly. My combat experience includes capital ship boarding actions. Together, we eliminate Truth's flagship while the demon secures the control room. Negative, Chief said. We need you leading the elite forces. Your warriors follow you. They don't follow me. Then assign someone else. But the anomaly cannot face a fleet alone. This is not bravery. This is suicide with style. Superman started to argue, then saw the way the elites watched the Arbiter, with respect, yes, but also with desperation. Thel 'Vadami was the symbol of elite resistance. If he died, the Alliance collapsed. But if Superman died, the UNSC and elites would mourn, but they'd continue. He was powerful, but he wasn't the keystone. The Arbiter stays with his people, Superman said. I go alone, that's final. Then take this, Regret said, producing a device that looked like crystallized light trapped in metal. Forerunner technology, a localized shield generator. It won't stop plasma fire completely, but it will reduce damage by approximately 60%, enough to extend your survival time. Superman accepted the device, felt it hum against his palm with energy that tasted wrong, ancient, powerful, and slightly malevolent. Why help me? I destroyed your worldview. You revealed truth, Regret corrected. And truth, while painful, is preferable to beautiful lies. The covenant I served is dead, but perhaps from its corpse, something honest can grow. You represent that possibility, anomaly. You are hope made flesh. And hope, I have learned, is worth dying for. The fleet translated to slip space 6 hours later. The journey felt wrong. Colors bleeding through dimensions that shouldn't intersect. Geometries that made Superman's enhanced vision register errors. When they emerged at the Ark, what filled the viewports was impossible. A mega-structure the size of a solar system. Curved petals of constructed matter arranged around a central foundry, each petal large enough to hold a planet. Forge facilities where new halo rings were being assembled by automated systems that had run for 100,000 years without supervision. And in the center, suspended in hard light scaffolding, Installation 08, a replacement ring for the one Chief and Superman would eventually destroy. But the beauty was marred by war. Covenant ships, hundreds of them, Truth's entire remaining fleet, orbited the Ark in defensive formations, and among them, moving with the coordinated precision of hive intelligence, were ships that had been infected. Cruisers with hulls grown over in flood biomass. Frigates that leaked spores into vacuum. The parasite had reached the Ark first, and was establishing beachheads on multiple petals. Contact in 3 minutes, Cortana announced. Truth's flagship, the Anodyne Spirit, is at the control room's entrance. He's already begun the activation sequence. Chief, if we don't stop him in the next 2 hours, the rings fire. Superman moved toward the hangar bay, stopped when Chief blocked his path. Don't die, the Spartan said. Simple. Direct, the closest thing to sentiment a lifetime of conditioning allowed. Wasn't planning on it, Superman replied. Then quieter. If I don't make it back, tell the UNSC that Earth, my Earth, still exists somewhere in the multiverse. Tell them some versions of humanity survive. Tell them hope isn't extinct. I'll tell them, Chief said. But you're coming back to tell them yourself. Superman smiled, tired, worn, but genuine, and launched from the hangar into vacuum. The battle was already in progress. Elite carriers exchanging fire with Covenant cruisers, plasma torpedoes crossing the void in beautiful arcs of destruction. Long swords darting between capital ships, targeting weak points in shields. And through it all, flood-infected vessels moving with disturbing coordination, firing on both UNSC and Covenant forces with equal enthusiasm. Superman crossed the battle space at speeds that bent light. Covenant point defense tracked him, fired, missed. He was too fast, too unpredictable. He reached Truth's flagship, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed even the supercarriers, covered in ornate religious symbols and bristling with weapons, and punched through its shields like they were soap bubbles. The hull breach vented atmosphere and brutes. Superman ignored the former soldiers tumbling into vacuum, focused on the reactor signatures deep in the ship's core. If he could disable the flagship, Truth would lose command and control. The fleet would scatter. The activation would stall. Inside, the ship was chaos, brutes in power armor firing Covenant weapons at anything that moved. Flood combat forms tearing through bulkheads, and everywhere, the screaming, brutes roaring battle cries, humans and elites begging for death as infection took hold, and underlying it all, the Gravemind's whisper echoing through every corridor. You return to us, Anomaly, despite wisdom, despite experience, despite knowing we will use this encounter to study you further. You are predictable. Heroes always are. You choose risk over abandonment. Choose sacrifice over pragmatism. This makes you exploitable. Exploitation requires me to lose, Superman said, carving through bulkheads toward the reactor. I don't plan to. Plans are irrelevant. We have fought this battle 1,000,000 times across 1,000,000 worlds. The specifics change. The outcome does not. Life resists. Life struggles. Life loses. We consume. We adapt. We persist. You are simply the latest variation in a pattern we have mastered. Superman reached the reactor chamber and found something that made his stomach drop. The room was filled with humans. Dozens of them. UNSC personnel captured during Reach's fall, kept alive in stasis, and now arranged around the reactor in positions that looked disturbingly ritualistic. And among them, standing at the chamber's center, was a figure in powered armor that Superman recognized from Chief's briefings. Tartarus, brute chieftain, Truth's enforcer, wielding a gravity hammer that could crack tank armor. The prophet said you would come, Tartarus rumbled, voice like grinding stone. Said the aberration cannot resist heroics. He was correct. Now you die, and your corpse will power the sacred journey. Those people, Superman said, noting the stasis fields keeping the humans unconscious. What are you doing to them? Fuel, Tartarus said simply. The reactor requires reclaimer genetic material to achieve full power output. Truth discovered this inefficiency in Forerunner design. Each human contributes. Each sacrifice brings us closer to activation. Superman's eyes blazed red. Let them go. Come and take them. Tartarus charged, gravity hammer swinging with force that distorted space itself. Superman caught the hammer's head with his palm, felt exotic physics trying to crush him, and held firm. For a heartbeat, they were locked. Kryptonian strength versus Forerunner technology channeled through brute fury. Then Superman twisted, redirected the hammer's momentum, and drove his fist into Tartarus's chest. The brute's power armor cracked, ribs fractured, but Tartarus only laughed, a sound like boulders colliding, and triggered the hammer's secondary function. Gravity inverted. Superman was slammed into this ceiling with force that cratered metal, then yanked back to the floor, then hurled into a bulkhead. The disorientation lasted only seconds, but seconds were enough. Tartarus activated the chamber's defenses. Sentinel drones materializing from hidden alcoves, energy beams converging on Superman from a dozen angles. Superman moved through the beam fire, destroying sentinels with heat vision and raw speed, but for every drone eliminated, 2 more appeared. The chamber was a Forerunner production facility, capable of generating unlimited defenders. He was fighting a war of attrition he couldn't win, unless he changed the parameters. Superman grabbed the reactor core's containment vessel, the sphere of exotic matter that powered the entire flagship, and crushed it. The reactor didn't explode. It imploded, pulling local space-time into a singularity that swallowed sentinels and bulkheads and everything within 50 meters, including Tartarus, whose final expression was surprise that anything could overpower Forerunner engineering. Superman flew out of the collapsing reactor chamber, grabbed as many stasis pods as he could carry. 6 humans, not nearly enough, but all he could manage, and punched through the flagship's hull as the ship began tearing itself apart from internal gravitational collapse. Below, on the Ark's surface, Chief's team had breached the control room. Superman could see them from orbit, small figures moving through Forerunner architecture, fighting brutes and flood simultaneously. The Arbiter's energy sword was visible as a purple blur, carving through enemies with the precision of someone who'd spent a lifetime mastering violence. Chief's rifle never stopped firing, each burst a kill, each movement economy personified. And at the control room's center, standing before a holographic interface that showed all 7 Halo rings, was the Prophet of Truth. Superman descended like divine judgment, the stasis pods secured to his back, and crashed through the control room's roof. The impact scattered brutes like bowling pins. Truth turned, face twisted with fanatic certainty, and raised his hands as if blessing Superman. "The aberration," Truth said, voice carrying across the chamber. "The hierarchs debated your nature. Forerunner construct, dimensional anomaly, divine test. It matters not. You are simply another obstacle to the great journey." "There is no great journey," Superman said, setting down the stasis pods where Chief's Marines could recover them. "Just genocide you're calling enlightenment." "Genocide?" Truth laughed. "Cold, bitter, ancient. I offer mercy. The flood cannot be stopped, cannot be contained. It spreads exponentially, consuming all flesh, turning civilizations into ammunition. The Halos are the only solution. Quick death is preferable to infection. This is logic. This is necessity. This is cowardice," Superman interrupted. "You're afraid. So you're dressing up extinction as salvation and hoping history remembers you as a prophet instead of a mass murderer." Truth's expression hardened. "I am already history. The moment I activate these rings, I become the savior who ended the flood, the Messiah who chose difficult truth over comfortable delusion. Billions will die, but the flood will starve, and when the galaxy repopulates, they will worship the sacrifice I made." "You won't be alive to see it," Chief said, rifle aimed at Truth's head. "Step away from the controls." "Or what, demons? You kill me. I become a martyr. You spare me. I activate the rings anyway. You cannot win this. I've calculated every variable, prepared for every outcome. The great journey is inevitable." The grave mind's voice resonated through the chamber, emerging from every shadow. Inevitable. A word the arrogant use when they cannot imagine alternatives. Truth seeks activation. We seek prevention. The UNSC seeks survival. All agendas converge here. All futures narrow to single point. And at that point, we will consume what remains. Flood combat forms pour through every entrance, hundreds of them, overwhelming through sheer numbers. Elites and Marines opened fire, but the tide was endless. The grave mind had committed everything to this moment, and the math was brutal. They couldn't kill fast enough to stem the assault. Superman planted himself between the team and the flood, becoming a barrier of invulnerable flesh. Combat forms crashed against him like waves against stone, and he held firm, heat vision carving through biomass, fists pulverizing corruption, but even he couldn't be everywhere at once. An elite fell, infection forms on his position. The Arbiter executed his own warrior before conversion could complete. A Marine named Vicente went down screaming. Chief grabbed her, saw the infection was too advanced, and put a rifle round through her brainstem with the mechanical efficiency of someone who'd made that choice 1,000 times. They were losing. Slowly, incrementally, but losing nonetheless. And then Cortana spoke. "Chief, I've found something in the Ark's core systems. The Forerunners built a failsafe, a way to destroy the Ark itself if it was ever compromised. It would take all 7 Halo rings offline. No activation possible, no galaxy-wide genocide, but what?" Chief demanded, reloading without looking. "It requires detonating the Ark's foundry. The explosion would destroy everything within 100,000 kilometers, including us, including the entire fleet. It's a suicide switch, Chief. The Forerunner's final admission that some threats are worth dying to stop." Superman looked at Chief. Chief looked at the Arbiter. The Arbiter looked at his warriors, exhausted, wounded, dying. And Regret, the prophet who'd lost his faith and found redemption, stepped forward. "I will activate it," Regret said. "This is my penance. My people caused this war. My faith enabled genocide. Let me end it with sacrifice." "No," Superman said. "I'll do it. You evacuate. Get everyone out. I can survive the blast. Probably." "Probably isn't certainty," Chief said. "And we need certainty." "Then we do it together," the Arbiter said. "Human, Sangheili, and Anomaly. 3 species united to stop extinction. If we die, proving cooperation is possible." Truth laughed from his position at the controls. "Fools, you cannot evacuate in time. Cannot reach minimum safe distance. The moment that failsafe activates, you all die. And I transcend. The rings fire, the galaxy burns clean, and I become immortal." Superman's fists clenched. Because truth was right, the math didn't lie. They could stop Halo's activation, but only by sacrificing everyone on the Ark. Hundreds of humans, dozens of elites, every soul that had fought to reach this point. Acceptable losses. That phrase Chief had used. The calculation Superman had spent his entire life refusing to make. But looking at these soldiers, people who'd been fighting this war for 30 years, who'd lost families and colonies and hope, Superman realized something. They'd already made the calculation. They'd volunteered. Not because they wanted to die, but because they'd accepted that some things were worth dying for. And maybe that was the difference between his universe and this one. On Earth, Superman could save everyone. Here, victory required sacrifice, and courage wasn't refusing to make that choice. It was accepting the choice and making it anyway. "Cortana," Superman said quietly. "How long until the failsafe reaches critical?" 3 minutes after activation. And minimum safe distance, 200,000 kilometers. Superman did the math. He could fly that fast, could grab maybe 2 people and accelerate beyond the blast radius. Maybe. But 2 people wasn't everyone. "Chief," Superman said, "I'm going to need you to trust me." "I don't trust you," Chief said, "but I believe in you. There's a difference." Superman smiled, good enough. Superman flew straight up through the control room's shattered ceiling, accelerating past Mach 20, past Mach 50, pushing toward speeds that made the air around him ignite from friction. Behind him, Chief had 3 minutes to evacuate 200 souls across 200,000 kilometers of space. Impossible by any conventional metric. And Chief was already calculating which ships could reach minimum safe distance and which would have to be sacrificed. But Superman wasn't thinking conventionally. At orbital altitude, he stopped, turned, and looked down at the Ark. The megastructure sprawled beneath him like the corpse of a metal god, and scattered across its surface were the ships. Elite carriers, UNSC frigates, Covenant cruisers engaged in their civil war, and flood-infected vessels spreading corruption like cancer. All of them would die when the failsafe triggered unless someone changed the physics. Superman had moved planets before, held black holes, flown through stellar cores. His strength wasn't just physical, it was conceptual. The refusal to accept that anything was impossible. He descended to the Ark's central foundry, where Cortana was already initiating the failsafe sequence. The structure was massive, a construct designed to forge replacement halo rings, powered by exotic matter that distorted space-time in ways that made Superman's vision blur. And at its core, a reactor that, when detonated, would release enough energy to vaporize everything within blast radius. Superman grabbed the foundry, not metaphorically. He wrapped his arms around the central spire, felt his fingers sink into Forerunner metal that was harder than anything humanity had ever forged, and pulled. The structure groaned. Supports fractured. Warning klaxons shrieked in languages that predated human speech. "What are you doing?" Cortana's voice crackled through local communications. "Superman, if you move the foundry, the failsafe destabilizes. It could detonate immediately." "Then I'll move fast," Superman said, and flew. He carried the foundry, 300,000 tons of Forerunner architecture, and a reactor approaching critical mass, straight up through the Ark's superstructure. Punched through petals of constructed matter, ignored the automated defenses that tried to stop him, and aimed for the empty space beyond the megastructure, where detonation wouldn't kill anyone. Below, Chief's voice on every frequency. "All ships, emergency burn. Get to minimum safe distance now." The fleet scattered. Elite carriers firing engines at maximum power. UNSC frigates pushing beyond safety margins. Even Covenant ships abandoned their civil war to flee the imminent explosion. The Arbiter's voice carried across battle nets, ordering his warriors to prioritize evacuation over victory. And for once, the elites obeyed without question. Truth remained in the control room, fingers still on the Halo activation interface, shrieking about divine purpose and inevitable transcendence. The Arbiter approached him, energy sword ignited, and drove the blade through Truth's chest with the precision of someone ending a nightmare. "The great journey," the Arbiter said quietly as Truth's eyes dimmed, "ends here, with Truth." Superman crossed 50,000 kilometers, 100,000. His muscles screamed protests as solar reserves depleted faster than the red sun could replenish them. The foundry's reactor was heating his hands, burning through invulnerability that had weathered nuclear detonations. He needed to reach 200,000 kilometers, needed to give the fleet time to escape, 150,000 kilometers. His vision blurred. Red sun radiation too weak, energy expenditure too high. For the first time since arriving in this universe, Superman felt truly mortal. felt the limits Chief had warned about approaching at terminal velocity, 175,000 kilometers. The reactor reached critical mass. Superman had seconds before detonation, and he was still 25,000 kilometers short. Not enough. He wasn't going to make it. Then, from below, a voice on his communicator, the Arbiter. Anomaly. This was always a one-way mission. You were simply too stubborn to accept it. But if you die here, tell your gods that Sanghali honor demanded sacrifice. Tell them we died proving cooperation between species is possible. I'm not dying, Superman gasped, still flying, still carrying the Foundry despite cellular damage that would have killed humans instantly. And neither are you. Just hold on. 190,000 kilometers. His vision went white. Solar reserves hit zero. He was flying on willpower and spite and the stubborn Kryptonian refusal to accept that anything was impossible. 195,000 kilometers. The reactor detonated. The explosion was stellar scale, a miniature supernova that painted space white, consumed the Foundry in microseconds, and expanded outward in a sphere of annihilating energy. Superman caught the wavefront with his body, became a shield against cosmic fury, and felt himself burning. Not just skin, cellular structure, the fundamental bonds that made Kryptonian flesh invulnerable. He held position through force of will, absorbed energy that should have vaporized him. And when the blast finally dissipated, when space returned to its normal darkness, Superman was falling, not flying, falling like a stone, unconscious, drifting toward the Ark's gravity well with a trajectory that ended in terminal impact. Chief watched from the shadow of Ententi's bridge, saw Superman's tumbling form, and made a decision without hesitation. Arbiter, I need a phantom. Fast. The anomaly is beyond recovery range, the Arbiter said, calculating trajectories. He will impact the Ark's surface in 4 minutes. Nothing we have can intercept in time. Then we make time, Chief said, already running toward the hangar. Cortana, plot and intercept. Course, maximum burn. Don't care about fuel reserves or structural integrity. Get me to him. The Phantom launched from the carrier with Chief at the controls, pushing the Covenant dropship beyond design tolerances. It screamed through space at velocities that made the whole glow cherry red, and Chief's hands moved across alien controls with the muscle memory of someone who'd stolen enemy vehicles so often it was reflex. He reached Superman with 30 seconds to spare, extended the Phantom's gravity lift, caught the falling Kryptonian, and pulled him into the troop bay. Superman was unconscious, suit burned away entirely, skin charred but healing in visible increments as red sun radiation, weak but present, began restoring cellular damage. Don't you dare die, Chief said, checking for pulse and finding one. Slow, irregular, but present. That's an order. Superman's eyes opened. Barely. Don't take orders. Yeah, well, start. Because we're not done yet. Behind them, the Ark was dying. The failsafe had destroyed the Foundry, but the megastructure's systems were cascading failures. Entire petals were breaking away, tumbling into the void. The flood-infected ships were attempting evacuation, but without the Foundry's gravitational anchors, they were being torn apart by tidal forces. Once a grave mind's voice, diminishing but still present, whispered across every frequency, "You won. This time. But we remain. On other installations, other worlds, patient, waiting, learning. When we return, and we will return, we will have adapted to account for Kryptonian biology, for Spartan tactics, for Sanghali honor, We are inevitable, Anomaly. You merely delayed us. Good, Superman croaked, forcing himself upright despite protests from every cell. I like delays. Gives people time to prepare, to adapt, to find solutions you didn't expect. We shall see. The presence faded, and with it the last flood signatures on local sensors. The parasite had retreated, withdrawn to containments on other installations, choosing patience over extinction. The Phantom docked with the shadow of intent. To cheers from a bridge crew that had watched Superman carry a doomsday weapon 50,000 kilometers while on fire. The Arbiter met them at the airlock, mandibles spread in what Superman now recognized as elite satisfaction. You survived, the Arbiter said. Unexpected, but welcome. Kryptonians are stubborn, Superman managed, leaning heavily on Chief. It's genetic. Indeed, your stubbornness saved 237 lives today. Humanity, Sangheli, even some Covenant who chose truth over faith. This alliance exists because you refuse to accept that death was the only solution. Superman looked around the bridge, at elites and humans working side by side at consoles, coordinating jump calculations and damage control. Saw Regret speaking with a group of elite commanders, sharing Forerunner data, building the foundation for something that might, with time and effort, become peace. It's not over, Superman said. The flood still exists. Truth is dead, but there are other prophets. The Covenant will take years to rebuild, and some factions won't accept peace. No, Chief agreed. It's not over, but it's better. That counts for something. Does it? How many died today? Hundreds? Thousands? Billions survived, Chief countered. Every person alive right now exists because you refuse to let the galaxy burn. That's the math that matters. Superman wanted to argue. Wanted to say that acceptable losses were never acceptable. That every death was a failure. That heroes saved everyone or saved no one. But looking at Chief, at this child soldier who'd been broken and rebuilt into a weapon, who'd spent 30 years calculating which deaths he could afford, Superman understood something fundamental. This universe had different rules, darker rules, and operating here required accepting that victory sometimes looked like minimized tragedy rather than perfect salvation. It hurt. God, it hurt. But it was true. What now? Superman asked. Now, Chief said, removing his helmet for the second time, revealing a face that looked a decade older than it had 3 days ago. We survive, we rebuild, we prepare for the flood's return, and we prove that the alliance we built here wasn't temporary desperation, but the foundation for something permanent. A treaty between humanity and the Sangheli, the Arbiter added, mediated by you, Anomaly. You who represent neither side but both. You who demonstrated that cooperation achieves what genocide cannot. I'm not a diplomat, Superman protested. No, Regret said, approaching with data crystals containing Forerunner records. You are something better. You are proof that heroism exists even in universes that have forgotten what heroes look like. The UNSC needs that. The Sangheli need that. And I suspect, Anomaly, you need that too. Superman looked out the viewport at Halo's distant ring, now offline and powerless. At the debris field where Truth's fleet had died in civil war. At the empty space where the Ark's foundry had been before Superman carried it into oblivion. He thought about Earth. His Earth. Lois. The Justice League. The life he'd been torn away from. And he thought about this universe. Darker, harder, built on necessary evils and acceptable losses. a place that had taken everything he believed about heroism and stress, tested it until the foundations cracked, but hadn't broken, not completely. "I'll stay," Superman said finally, "until we're certain the flood is contained, until the Alliance is stable, until this universe doesn't need someone reminding them that hope is a choice, not a luxury." Chief extended his hand. Superman shook it. Spartan and Kryptonian, human weapon and alien savior, both exhausted, both damaged, both refusing to quit. "Welcome to humanity's last stand," Chief said. "Try not to die. We've grown attached to having you around." "I'll do my best," Superman replied. "That's all I've ever done." The fleet jumped to slip space hours later, carrying survivors and refugees and the fragile promise of peace. Behind them, the Ark's ruins spun in darkness, and somewhere in its depths, Guilty Spark's voice echoed through empty halls. Reclaimer protocols terminated, Halo array offline. Containment status breached but controlled. Conclusion, acceptable outcome. Amendment to protocols account for anomalous entities capable of altering probability through sheer obstinacy. Fascinating. The Forerunners never calculated for hope. And in deep space, beyond sensor range, a single flood spore drifted on solar wind. Patient, waiting, carrying genetic data harvested from Superman's cells during their encounters. Incomplete, insufficient for replication, but archived, studied, understood. The grave mind was learning, and when it returned, and it would return, the war would begin again. But this time, humanity wouldn't face it alone. This time, they had allies, and a Kryptonian who'd learned that in dark universes, even small lights mattered. Superman floated in the observation deck of the newly established Joint Operations Facility orbiting Earth. Humanity's Earth, scarred but surviving, rebuilding under the protection of a UNSC Sangheili alliance that would have been unthinkable 4 months ago. Master Chief stood beside him in dress uniform that looked uncomfortable on a man built for combat. The Arbiter was there too, armor-polished, carrying the weight of a civilization learning to live without religious certainty. They watched construction drones assemble defensive platforms designed by human engineers and elite shipwrights working in cooperation. Watched transport ships carrying refugees, human and Sangheili both, to colonies where former enemies would learn to be neighbors. Watched the future being built from the ashes of 30 years of genocide. Cortana estimates the flood will attempt expansion within 18 months, Chief said. Spectres are monitoring all known Forerunner installations. We'll have warning. We'll be ready. Ready isn't the same as safe, Superman said. No, but it's better than extinct. The Arbiter's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The prophets promised my people transcendence through faith. You showed us transcendence through cooperation. I'm not certain which required more courage. Superman smiled, tired but genuine. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to act despite it. You've both been doing that for decades. I just helped make the choice easier. You made it possible, Chief corrected. There's a difference. Silence settled, comfortable despite the weight of recent memory. Outside, a transport marked with both UNSC and Sangheili insignias departed for a colony world where children, human and elite alike, would grow up knowing their parents fought together rather than against each other. It wasn't perfect, wasn't salvation. But it was hope. And in a universe built on necessary evils and acceptable losses, hope was revolutionary. The multiverse never sleeps, Superman said quietly, feeling the dimensional pull again. That wrongness that suggested this universe was still trying to reject him, that eventually he'd find his way home to Lois and Earth and the life he'd left behind. But not yet. Not while the flood waited in darkness. Not while the Alliance needed someone to remind them that cooperation was stronger than division. Not while this universe still needed Superman. Chief and the Arbiter said nothing, just stood beside him, three warriors from three worlds, watching the future being built one world at a time. And somewhere in deep space, Installation 07 drifted silent and dark, its libraries containing knowledge the Forerunners died to suppress, its containment facilities holding horrors that waited with patient hunger. The war wasn't over. But for today, for this moment, they'd won, and winning was enough. The multiverse never sleeps. More crossovers await.